What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, the podcast that wastes hours of your life that you'll never get back. We are your co-hosts, Spencer and Gabe, joined by our friend Sam, who joined us very recently for the Empire of the Damned episode, which was very fun. If you've read that book, highly recommend going and checking that out. I think we did a spoiler-free section for that, so if you've only read the first one, you could watch the first little bit of it as well. But today we'll be chatting about The Will of the Many by James Islington. We'll do a spoiler-free section like we did in Empire of the Damned, and we'll do a full spoilers discussion, so feel free to use the chapter markers below on YouTube, and you can just go through there and jump to whatever section that you would like to watch. And remember, if you'd like to chat with us, you can reach out to us on Twitter and Discord, or support us on Patreon, where you can watch all of these episodes as we record them, sometimes a month ahead of time, before when the guys over on YouTube get to see it. Just back us at the Mistborn tier or above, and you're in, and you'll be able to get access to all of these ahead of time. Also, a quick reminder that we do have a Fantasy Files bingo card that you can fill out as you watch our episodes in 2024. And when you get bingo, you can win a physical trilogy of your choosing if you're the first one to complete the card. All of that stuff, of course, is linked in the description, so feel free to jump down there if any of those sound interesting to you. With the housekeeping out of the way, let's chat for a bit about what else we've been reading, and just remember to use the chapter markers down below if you want to jump straight to the discussion. Sam, thank you for joining us and hanging out to talk about Will of the Many. How have you been?
Good. How about you guys?
Good. Yeah, doing good. Doing good. Yeah, you were just on for Empire of the Damned, and that was a really fun discussion. And I think Will of the Many was the one that we wanted to read before
Originally.
Empire of the Damned. Yeah, and life got crazy and stuff, and so I'm glad that we found a way to do this later, because this
I'm
is a
so
book
excited.
that,
And
yeah.
honestly, I almost feel like it was kind of fated because on the reread, I caught so much more and appreciated so much more and could just relax knowing what was going to happen and just enjoy the ride. So I'm
Right.
actually happy that it ended up this way.
Yeah, there's no way that I could have talked about this book even a week or two after reading it the first time, because there was so many things that when I did my reread, there was so many things where I'm like, oh, I totally forgot they did this. I had totally forgotten a big part of the ending, and then when I got there, I was like, oh, that's
Ooh,
right.
yeah.
I can't believe I forgot that. So I'm glad we did a reread. I enjoyed it even more the second time around. I loved this book so much. But
When we know Gabe didn't want to really read it originally, he read a
Yep.
little
yeah, that was
Yep.
the other thing.
so.
That was funny. The
And then
first
gifted
time,
Spencer the knowledge of knowing he read it and loved it.
Right.
yeah. Yeah, that was when you and I had scheduled this episode initially. Gabe was like, I'm just not getting it. I'm gonna pass on this one." And I was like, "Okay, we'll just do the episode, Sam and I." And then Gabe and I were on a live stream maybe a week or two later, and Gabe surprised me, and he was like, "By the way, I just finished Will of the Many, and I loved it." And I'm
Not
like,
only
"What?"
that, but I hit you with the last 3 lines of this book, which are, in my opinion, iconic.
Okay.
But you didn't catch it. I thought that you would have.
No, I don't think I ever did.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's great though. Yeah, that was a great surprise.
It was stated that it was meant to play out this way.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But Will of the Many aside for a moment, is there anything else that we've been reading since we last talked? Have you guys been into anything?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been able to read a whole lot more, and you'll be disappointed to hear that I wasn't able to finish my reread completely.
Ooh.
I finished a big chunk of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I finished a minute before we started, so
Yeah. And it is what it is. I wasn't able to listen at work last week really at all. So it was just my
shit,
drives
okay.
and when I could at home, and of course life is life, right? Oh well.
You
But
mean to me?
I did finish it once already, and I
You've
remembered
already read it,
most
so
of
it
the
doesn't
chunks,
matter.
right? Like I know what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, and then I've been watching Fallout, and I'm not even very far in that yet. So, but it's
Oh,
awesome.
I finished it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't say anything because I'm only
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
not
how
very far.
how far are you in Fallout?
I think I'm on the 3rd episode.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, we could talk about that. That's also a show that I just finished the other night, and I am so blown away by it. Like
I loved it. I loved everything so much.
it was so good, and like I'm pretty well known for being extremely critical of these
Yeah, he's not
adaptations
well
that
known.
come
He
out.
is.
Yeah, I'm not very forgiving of
I'm the
shows.
opposite. I'm extremely
Really?
forgiving.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not at all.
I'm the same
And
way.
and
I
like
look at them as
I
two separate entities. Like
Yep.
they're not the same thing. So don't look at them as source material. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I don't feel the same way, but that's okay. So I'm very critical of these shows,
Yeah.
especially because a lot of the showrunners for these shows are very arrogant. They kind of yell at the fans for various things, and a lot of which is political. And it's kind of like, okay, like yeah, but these are like the fans that like made this thing popular. But with Fallout, I was literally watching the show with like a fine tooth comb, and I couldn't find one thing that was like outside of the lore. Like all of it was very accurate. Even they went so far as to add certain sounds from the game. So like in that first episode when she gets admitted, when she gets accepted to do like the whole marriage thing with the other vault, the sound that plays on her Pip-Boy is the sound that you get in the game for like a certain achievement. And I'm like, dude, that is so cool. And there even like the level up sound in the game, like the da-dun da-dun.
Yep.
There's like a moment where I can't remember which episode it is, but it's when she like kills for the first time in the wasteland in the show, and there's like a musical score playing in the background, and the end of the musical score is the dun dun dun. I'm like, that's so cool. And there's just so many moments, like the fight at the beginning where the raider like hits his jet.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, there's so many like little Easter eggs. There's Grognak the Barbarian comics all over the place in the show. All of it is just so incredibly accurate. Even like there's a moment where one of the Brotherhood of Steel guys, he's like in his power armor, and somebody like comes up behind him and pulls his power core out of his armor, and it all like goes dead. And I'm like, that is so cool. That is like straight out of the game. And so I loved it. I had a fantastic time with it. I literally,
yeah.
I have like nothing bad to say about it at all.
I binged it. Me and my husband binged it. We could not stop watching.
Yeah.
And it had Walter Goggins.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
I just love him. We always just go Baby Billy from Righteous Gemstone.
Oh, okay.
Because we just think that character is so funny. But yeah, we loved Fallout. It was
They also-
and it got me the game. You know, it made
Did
me
you?
very interested.
You beat the
So,
game?
I have not beat the game, but
Oh.
I got interested in it and I started playing it. So
Oh, okay. Cool.
I'm not great at shooting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's a pretty difficult game because there's no like setting to like have it auto aim in any way.
Well, you have
Yep.
the VAT system.
Maybe I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, really? You should have it right from the beginning. You hit like one of the bumpers, and it pulls up. You can it like it like
use that
stops
for
time.
people? I thought you could only do that for the like cockroach things.
No, you can
No,
do
you
that
can
for
do it for
any enemy,
everything.
but it is like you can only do it so much before you run out of
Yeah.
whatever stamina it
Stop
takes to do that.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Now you know though. Now you know.
Yeah.
Next time you play it.
Yeah. Yeah.
guys
You
are
can do that.
taking so many tries.
Yeah.
I'm better at my shooting though.
Yeah. The VAT system comes in handy. You just kind of level up your. I think it's your AP points.
Yep,
You level
that's
those
it.
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
and
Yeah, I'm having fun with it.
I saw
That's
this thing
cool.
on the internet too, where they released a thing saying, "Thank you, Fallout fans. Get ready for season 2." So
Yep.
that's
Yep. Season two's coming.
yep.
I will take
Hey,
it
dude, it
gladly.
was the finale. I'm not gonna say what it is,
Yeah,
but the
don't even.
finale for season one is so amazing. It left me on the edge of my seat,
Yeah,
and I'm like, I need the second season
anymore.
right now. Like, I need it right now.
Yes.
It was really, really good. It was really good. But yeah, I had a fantastic time with that show. It's so nice for once just to feel like I can watch one of these things and not hate it.
Hate
Like
it.
it's so nice just
Not
to
hate it
be
just because you're
like,
so anal about the differences,
I think you
discrepancies.
guys would be surprised. Like a lot of people are. Like I would say that most people are like pretty anal about it. But I mean, it's cool that you guys can like let it go or whatever. But I think most fans of like certain books and certain like video games and stuff are like pretty like stay true to the thing I
Yeah,
love.
of course. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's totally fair.
I mean,
And
I can see it if like A Court of Thorns and Roses ever actually got its like adaptation, and
I mean,
they
it's
like
porno.
just totally made major changes to the storyline. I would be upset. If
Right.
Yeah,
it was something like that I cared about that deeply, but I would have to really,
Yeah.
really care about it.
yeah.
Right.
Know? Which
Right.
I like a lot of things. I don't like deeply care about many things.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think like
Sure.
I don't know, like when I look at like adaptations, and mind you, I haven't watched or compared a whole lot of them, but I think in my head I just think, you know, like I get that it's in some situations like it might not make sense to do it the same way you did it in the book, for like, a
Logistically, like filming and
$600 million production or whatever, crazy
yeah,
money involved,
yeah,
um, which is a bummer because obviously if it was like the book, it'd be cool. But I don't know. I guess I just give him the benefit of the doubt, uh, and say, all right, if the story's still true, maybe it's cut out some parts that are really important, or they do something slightly different than they did it in the books. Oh well. I would be pissed if like you have this world and they just totally shit on it
yeah.
the whole time. If there's nothing that
Yeah.
is
Why did
the
you buy
same.
this like
Yeah,
Well,
adaptation?
that's
that would.
that's like what they did with that's what they did with Wheel of Time. Like they
Yeah,
changed so much of the lore, like so much of it was vastly different from
yeah.
the books to where it's like it's not even like the same thing. Like this
Totally.
isn't
Yeah.
this isn't
When
even
it
like
gets
the
to
Wheel of
that
Time.
point, if it's like it's not even the same thing, I would be pissed too.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanna talk about what else I've been reading because I read the first book in the Powder Mage trilogy, and this is one that I want Gabe to read so bad. We have to read
Which I
something else
will.
for next week,
Yeah, I absolutely
but
will read it.
I'm like, dude, I got to the end of Powder Mage and I'm like, I want to pick up the second book right now. If I didn't have to pick up Warbreaker for next week, I would be reading the next Powder Mage book
Yeah.
because it was so good. Do you know what this is, Sam?
No,
It's like set in
Google it.
Civil War era, like American Civil War era, and they have these what would you call them, Gabe? Like muskets, where you
Muskets.
like
Yeah, it's a
load it
musket.
from the top.
Yep.
Um, and they have different kinds of bullets that do different magical things, and the powder mages can make the bullets do. They can like shoot a bullet and then make it explode, or they can make a like if there's a barrel of gunpowder across the way, they can make that explode, or they can shoot a bullet and like curve it and like hit somebody who's like behind a wall or something. And so there's all these really cool magical abilities they have. And what powers their magic is it's essentially a drug. It's like this magical gunpowder, and they like snort it, and it sends them into for some of them it sends them into like a rage. For some of them it makes them like really sharp and aware of things, or they can move like a little bit faster and stuff. And then you have these other mages called the privileged, which are basically your classic wizard, like lightning and fire and all the elements and stuff. And at the beginning of the book, the powder mages have taken over the kingdom that previously belonged to the other nobility and like the privileged and all them. And so there's a coup that's staged in the first, or like before the first chapter. Like when the first chapter starts, the coup has already happened, and you're following the leader of the rebellion, Tanis. He's kind of like this old grizzled veteran, but you really come to love him. He's a really awesome guy. And then his son Taniel, who is kind of like his right hand man. He's like running a lot of like covert missions for him and stuff. And then this other guy, I forget his name, but he's like an inspector, and so Tanis is using him to like get information throughout the kingdom and like find out all these secrets. And just these three characters. I think there's one more too. There's a girl that was like the handmaid to the previous king, and now she's kind of like working in the midst of all this. Um, and so I loved following these characters. Every time it would switch to a different POV, I was like, I like this just as much as the other guy that I was reading. And the action is incredible. Like, I feel like a lot of action scenes for me can kind of get blurry and can kind of get like this person's shooting, and then this happened, and it's just kind of like, okay, get to like the dramatic part
Yeah,
of
like
it.
what's the end result?
Yeah.
Right. But with this, like every step along the way, I knew what was happening, and it was paced in such a way where I could keep track of it, and it was so exciting. Like every action scene was awesome. And like there's this one scene where there's like a powder mage up on the like castle wall, and down below there's like a privilege that's like shooting lightning at him, and just over and over like hitting him with lightning. And finally there's like a gap in the lightning just long enough where one of the powder mages like sticks his head up and like curves a bullet into the neck of the privilege, and it's just like that was so freaking cool. Like just
Yeah.
in the context of what else was happening in that scene, it was the coolest thing in the world. And that's happening all the time, and so I loved it. I loved the intrigue of it. I loved the whole, it kind of plays with the idea of, is the rebellion doing the right thing by taking down this previous government? Like, is that actually the right thing to do? And then like how does that transfer to like the citizens of the kingdom? Like, are they fair game to like kill and kidnap and stuff like that for this cause? And so it plays with a lot of those ideas, and then there's like it's not really a spoiler, but there's like supernatural god like elements to it that kind of come into play later that are really, really interesting. So highly recommend. I'm definitely gonna read, like, as soon as I can. I'm gonna read the next two in the series because
Nice.
it was fantastic. What about you, Sam? Have you been reading anything else?
The Jade series by Fonda.
Yes, dude. Yes.
I think it was the last time we spoke when I had finished the.
You were just about to start it, right?
Yeah, I was like, I was that was what I was going to start next, and you guys reaffirmed it for me, and I loved book one. I blew through it. I'm part of the way through book two, so that's what I plan to hopefully continue to read.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Book two was my favorite. Book
Oh,
two had,
it's been so many things like so quickly, and it's one of the few books where I never really knew like where it was going to go or what was going to happen. The author very much was like, "Oh, this is what you think or want. This is what I've written to make you want to happen. Guess what? Like, no, it's going to be this."
Yeah.
And,
right.
I'm really enjoying it. So I know I'm late to the party, but
Hey.
I'm also glad that it's done
Yep.
and I can read a completed series.
You're
so
there.
Yeah.
You're there.
Yeah.
yeah.
I love those books. I have all of the special editions up
Yep.
on my shelf.
Not only that,
I
but
have
we
another
met
edition
Fonda
that's, like,
Lee. We
signed.
went and met her
Yeah.
in person.
Yeah, that was really
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
She was
Story.
doing a book signing, and over in Seattle, and I had talked to her a little bit on Twitter, but I had no reason to think that she like knew who we were or anything. And so we're waiting in line to meet her, and we kind of come to the front of the line. She finishes up with the person that was just at her table, and she looks at us and she says, "Oh, it's Spencer and Gabe from the Fantasy Files." And we were like, "Holy
"What?"
shit!"
It made my
Like, yeah.
life.
Oh, it did. It did. It absolutely
Oh my
did.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now,
and
I
she,
have a signed copy of the third book that is like my
Yep.
baby.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's so sweet.
it's
Oh,
awesome. And she like personalized like to Gabe and like to
yeah.
Spencer
Yep.
and all
Oh,
that,
that's
and
so nice.
she let us stand there and talk with her like way longer than anybody
Yeah.
else got to,
Yeah, it
and we
was
like
really
got
cool.
pictures with her and
It was really
stuff. It was
cool.
Oh,
awesome. It
that's
was super cool.
amazing.
Yeah, she's super super nice. Um, so then the other thing I read this a little while ago, but you and I haven't gotten to talk about it. Is I read Assassin's Apprentice, and this was a book that everybody had kind of like talked about, and like I had heard like negative reviews and positive reviews, like the people that really liked it like love it, and the people that were kind of middling on it usually like didn't like it really at all. um, and so it seemed like kind of a mixed bag, and everything I had heard about it, I was like, I don't think that's going to be a book for me. But there was just some random day, like this
I
is
was
how it
pushing
happens
you though.
sometimes.
I feel like I was pushing you too. I was like, no, like I need you to read this.
Yeah, yeah,
This is my favorite series of all time, hands down.
right, right.
Hands down. No
That
question. Hands down.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there was just like a random day like 3 or 4 weeks ago where I think I was just looking for something to read, and I knew that Gabe had bought it a while ago,
Yep.
and so I was like, I'm just gonna listen to like the first chapter and see if it does anything for me. And so I listened to the first chapter, and that kind of turned into like two or three. And I still wasn't like, oh my God, I love this. But I just kept going and kept going. And by the time I finished the book, I was like, I get it now. Like, I love this. Like, I love that book
Woo!
so much.
So much.
And I totally understand why there's people that wouldn't enjoy it as much, but
Mhm.
I think that anybody who enjoys King Killer and enjoys the parts of King Killer where Quoth is just kind of doing stuff,
Yeah,
like it's not necessarily like main plot related, but he's just like
love it.
doing things.
Mhm.
Like I think if that's what you love about King Killer, then you're going to love Assassin's Apprentice.
If an author can make you love a character so much, you are so invested in this character that like even the non-essential storyline stuff is just like
Yeah.
I love that series so much.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yeah. I
Robin
think
is a genius.
I don't know where I fall. I'll probably feel different in the next two books. I don't know if I would say I love Fitz as a character, but I loved his interactions. Like I loved the relationships that he had with all of the side
It's so
characters.
compelling. It is
Yeah.
just so compelling.
Yeah, I had a great time. I had a great time with Assassin's Apprentice. I loved it. So
Yeah,
which
definitely
was surprising because I was ready to not like it at all. Like I was totally ready to be like, okay, I'm gonna read part of this and I'm gonna set it down. I'm gonna move on to something else. But I just kept going, and then I got to the point where I was like, I really want to hear the next part. Like I'm
yeah,
not just like going anymore. I'm like I
yeah,
actively want to read this, and it was a great experience. I absolutely loved it. And I'm
yeah,
so interested in like where the first book leaves off. I'm like, okay, so what's next? And I'm ready to get into the second book. I
yeah.
need to read Powder Mage first, but I will read the second book.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I was gonna make a video on it on Assassin's Apprentice, and then I was like, I think I should get through the first trilogy and then make a video on it so that I'm not making like three different videos.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I call dibs for
Yeah,
coming out and talking with you about it, please.
yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, guys, so we are going to talk about Will of the Many here. We're going to get into our main discussion. We're going to start with some spoiler free stuff, a little bit of a review, if you will. Just to give people, like, if you're here and you're wondering what Will of the Many is, or if you'd like it, that's kind of what this section is for. So I'll just give, like, a brief description off the top of my head. It's set in a world where there is this hierarchical structure where the people at the top are they have like a lot of control, and then it diminishes as you go down the pyramid. And how this works is there's a magic system called will, and we're not exactly sure what will does, but it's this magic that everybody can send up the pyramid. So the people at the bottom are there's three different pyramids. There's like religion, uh
Government.
Military.
Government.
military, and is government the other one?
I
I
think it
think,
is.
yeah, I think so.
Okay. And so the guys at the bottom are taking half of their will and sending it to the row above them. And everybody on that row is taking half of their will and sending it up the ladder. And so it goes up and up and up until whoever's at the very top is extremely powerful. And, like I said, it has diminishing returns as you go down. But the hope is that the people at the bottom are hoping that they can climb the ladder and get to the
Yeah.
top and become more and more powerful. So they're willing to give up half of their will, half of their magic, in order to have a chance at advancement and to get more power. And it sounds kind of like progression fantasy, but it's really not.
Yeah,
It's
it's not.
really it's more political in nature. It's more, from what we can tell from the first book, the will doesn't really get used for a whole lot, but it is used as a like social status thing. When you have people below you sending like ceding their will to you, it's kind of a social status thing, and we get to see it in some areas. Like
Yep.
we see one of the characters like explodes somebody's head, and we see a couple other things that it can do, like it can move like big vehicles and stuff like that. And so we do get to see it, but it's, at least in this book, it's not entirely clear what all it can do. Um, but our main character is this kid Viz, who is an orphan, and you kind of find out more about him as the book goes along, and maybe he's not just an orphan. He comes from like a certain family that was well known before. He's from this island called Seuss, and the island was taken over by the hierarchy. So this is a government structure, a kingdom, kind of like the Roman Empire, that just goes from place to place to place and just takes over and wipes out all of the locals, and like takes over their little like kingdoms and territories and stuff. And so Viz was somebody who is the result of one of those kingdoms being taken over. And so at the beginning of the book, we see him as an orphan, and he ends up getting adopted by somebody who is somewhat high up in the hierarchy, and they adopt him, hoping that he will go to this academy for them and dig up some dirt that they're looking for on people, because Viz has certain talents that they think would be useful. And so they're sending him to this academy to kind of ingratiate himself with the rest of the hierarchy and kind of come out on top and come out with some information for the guy that is adopting him. And that's kind of the main premise of the book. There's a lot more to it, but that's kind of the overall view. Do you guys think I missed anything
No,
there?
that was actually really. I'm impressed. That was really
Yeah,
well done.
I explained it to friends as like, imagine if pyramid schemes like took over the world.
Yeah,
And
totally.
that's how we ran our governments, but like you also have to like seed your energy
Right.
to the people above you in your line.
Just replace it with money and it still works.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I have had like obsessions with pyramid schemes, like MLMs, not being
Yeah,
in
I've been there.
Like,
I've been there. Seriously, I've been
You're
there
like,
too.
I got 20 of my friends to all
Yeah.
join
been
my
there.
pyramid
I am
scheme.
just so fascinated by like the techniques they use to like
Yeah.
lure people in, and like
Right.
how it works with like the higher up you are, but like you got to get in early or you're screwed. And so it was, maybe that's what drew me into it, where it was like, oh, if you want to know like if pyramid schemes were like the governmental structure of the world you lived in, read this book.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about pyramid schemes as a
Oh, that
device
was like
there.
all I thought about through the whole book is like, oh, this is a pyramid scheme. Like, especially with things we won't talk about now, but that you find
Sure.
out later,
Yeah.
is that I was like, oh, this is just a pyramid scheme, just in government form.
Yep.
Right.
In a huge scale.
On a huge, massive,
Yep.
global scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I mean, they
awesome.
literally call them the pyramid.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. Something I'll note is that when I because I've read this book twice now, and on my first
Yeah,
read,
right?
Mhm.
I I was like, I was hearing a lot of people saying it's like Red Rising, and even the blurb on the front of the book is like, fans of Red Rising are gonna love this book. And at first I was like, I don't really think so. But on my second read through, I was like, oh, it is totally like Red Rising. I
Huh.
would
I
say,
can see the parallels.
yeah, I would say that it's like if Red Rising and Name of the Wind had a baby, and then you sprinkled in some, like, well, I guess Red Rising has the Roman thing going for it,
No, but
so it has that
the
built
name of
in.
the wind Quoth has more of the personality trait of Viz, with
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
way they react
That's where
and
I connect Quoth and Viz is the
yeah,
personality and
I
the
like
mental
that
process that he
analogy.
goes through all the time. Very much Quoth.
Yeah, I
yeah.
like that, Spencer.
I saw a lot of like Name of the Wind in how Viz is interacting with his classmates, where like
Yep.
maybe sometimes they're like butting heads at first, but eventually they all come around to Viz's like charm and charisma, and
Mhm.
like he's able to kind of make people work together who wouldn't
A
normally work
leader,
together, which
a
Yeah.
is
board
what,
leader.
yeah, and that's kind of what Quoth did, and it's also what why am I forgetting his name from Red Rising? But it's also what he did.
Arrow.
Darrow, thank
Arrow.
you.
Yep.
Um, and so yeah, there's a lot of similarities between the two, and I think sometimes it's more Red Rising than Name of the Wind, but I think it kind of goes back and forth
I
for
like
me,
that. I
especially in like the school setting and
like
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
I think Viz and Quoth would be very good friends. Very good.
Totally.
Yeah, probably,
Totally.
probably, yeah. Um, Another thing I was thinking about, because I was listening to another podcast that was talking about Will of the Many, like as I was getting ready for this episode, and they were like, "Oh, this is a perfect like beginner fantasy book," and I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I
Last book I
think,
would recommend to someone just entering.
No. Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely not.
No, that's like a Court of Thorns and Roses. Here you go.
Yeah.
yeah. Like I would think the
Absolutely not.
Will of the Many. I would say the Will of the Many is like firmly in at least
Hi.
intermediate. Like
Yeah.
I would say there's like some complicated concepts that would go into like the like
Cons.
expert reader, yeah.
Yeah, I
Or like
mean,
advanced reader or whatever.
yeah, I would never recommend this to someone new to fantasy. I think
Yeah.
even that, like I said, I'm so glad we did this on a reread because there were so many more
Right.
things I
Yeah.
understood more, and I read a lot of fantasy,
Yep.
a lot, you know. So this would not be the thing I recommend to someone just stepping into to fantasy or even high fantasy.
Yeah, that was the thing, right? That's kind of what we were talking about when we were backstage, is that this this book, like, and obviously like Gabe and I read a ton of fantasy too, and it's like our, at least my first read through, I did not get anywhere close to everything, and on this second read through, I was finally like, kind of like what you were saying, like you know the basic premise of what happens, and like the second time you go through, you can kind of comb through those details,
Hmm.
and I think that really helped me a lot to understand it better.
Well, the
So,
breadcrumbs like make more sense on the
right.
second reread. And you're like, oh, this adds so much context to like things you read about later that you just didn't remember the first read through. So
Right.
I agree.
Yeah. I would say it's also really fast paced. I don't think I noticed how fast paced it was my first read through. But this time I was like, man, yeah, this is cooking. Like, we're already here at this part of the book. Like, oh wow. And yeah, I think it has a really excellent pace. I think the place where it's gonna lose people a little bit is that beginning.
Yeah.
I
where
was
it's
going to say
like
the beginning.
you're like figuring out like what is will, what is the hierarchy, and all of this like terminology and info is getting
Because they
thrown at you
throw you
very
in,
fast.
like
Yeah,
right away, you are thrown into just a scenario.
right,
There's not like a subtle build up with
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
it.
You
Yeah,
are you're in Vis's head, and you're there in the middle of whatever he's doing at the time, and it's kind of a hard start. Like when I first read it, initially, I can't remember if I told you this, but initially when I did my first read, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, and it wasn't until Viz gets adopted where I was like, oh, this is cool now, and I
yes.
started to like get it.
Like there's
Um,
more to this story, like a lot more.
right, yeah,
He's being
and
like pulled into this big plan.
yeah, right. Yeah, and it all kind of starts to take shape, and like once you know about Alkiscore, the guy that adopted him, once you know about like his brother and stuff, you're like, okay, we have a goal. Like I know where we're headed, and so that made it a little bit easier. So I would tell people that are reading this for the first time, just give it a few chapters, get to the point where Viz gets adopted and like goes to the guy's house and lives there and stuff.
It's not that far in. It's not that
Yeah,
far in.
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a few chapters. Um, and yeah, I think that really covers all the notes that I had for it. I would highly recommend it. I mean, like it in 2023, it was on everybody's like top 3 of the year lists, and it would have been on mine as well if I had read it last year. But as of right now, I'm like it's either this or it's Empire of the Damned for my favorite books of the year. Like both of them are so good. Will of the Many is incredible.
That's
Like I was
hard. That's a
like
hard, like, especially because Empire of the Damned is a follow up to like something that I
right.
love. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like not on even footing. But like, I got the Will of the Many initially because like I loved the cover. That was how it was presented to me on the internet. And
Yeah.
I got it when it first came out and read it right away. And then I was very upset because I was like, this was so good. And there's not even like it'll maybe come out in a, book 2 at this date. So I'm just dying to know
Yeah.
when we'll get a date for book 2.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. We were talking about Fallout earlier, where it's like I need the second season now. That's how I feel about this book, because it leaves you
Oh,
um
such a freaking cliffhanger, dude.
yeah, it leaves you on a bit of a cliffhanger. Uh, there's a lot of like unanswered questions that you get hit with right at the
Right at
end,
the very end.
and you're like, I
Yeah.
have to know. I have to know what
Yeah.
happens. So, so yeah, I don't know. I'd highly recommend this book if you haven't, if our viewers haven't picked it up yet.
Very good. Very, very good.
There's also a lot of like really great side characters. Like I felt like, there's some books, even some books that I've read recently, where the side characters are so forgettable, and I'm just like, I'm focused on the main character, and it's the side characters that I'm just like, yeah, they're there, they're doing stuff or whatever. And but this one, all of Viz's friends, like they all have such a distinct personality, um, and they all have very like specific parts to play throughout the book. And the side characters specifically reminded me a lot of Name of the Wind, especially with the academy
Yeah.
aspect of it.
Yep.
And so I would say if you like the university in Name of the Wind and the Wise Man's Fear, then you'd probably love that aspect of this. I don't know if we're going back to the academy in the second book, but yeah, I would kind of doubt it. But I would be
That's a kind of
surprised if
spoiler
those
free review.
right. I wouldn't be surprised if those side characters were still around though. All right, so we are going to go into full spoilers here. So if you have not read the book, I highly recommend that you do, because from here on to the end of the episode, we will be spoiling the heck out of it. So, spoiler warning: 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. All right, so our spoiler general thoughts. What do you guys think?
It was just, I love a book where you're like, I have no idea how the protagonist is supposed to get out of these situations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
usually lay out
So
how
true.
they get out of this
So
situation.
true.
And it was just repeatedly over and over and over again through this book. I mean, I have never seen a character be put up against so many hurdles that seemed impossible, that someone had to drum as the main character. And Spencer said earlier, this book is so fast paced. Like, it just is like one thing after another. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
One thing that really stood out to me this time, because I made it a good way through the whole book for a second read through, was Vis's inner monologue when something happens is so detailed. Like, because he's posing, as part of the hierarchy, right? Like, that's what he's trying to do, but he's not. He's against it. He hates it.
Right.
And so when somebody asks him a question that might, interfere with the thing that he has laid out for everybody to notice, he goes through this inner thought. He's like, well, if I tell him this, then maybe this will happen. But if I tell him that, then that might happen. And then this can maybe happen after it. And it's like, dude, I like, that's the most thing, or the biggest thing that stood out for me. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a chess master.
Yes.
He
yes.
Every single move and possibility, and has a plan for every single
and like battling both sides too, because he's like playing the middle of the coin,
While
that's the crazy thing.
To be someone he isn't. Having to put on this assumed identity, and also pretending to be someone's adopted son.
Yes.
He's got that was so cool. Like you're saying, Gabe, he's got basically like three different identities that he's trying to hide from various different people.
Both sides. Yeah.
He's got, he's the prince of Seuss.
Yep.
He's trying to hide that from everybody. And then like Reliquia with her like Anquist incursion thing, like she's making him do stuff and he doesn't want Alkiscore
to find out. Yeah, Alkiscore. Yep.
Yeah, he doesn't want him to know. He doesn't want anybody else to know, and then he doesn't want anybody to know about his mission looking for Searer.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, there's just so many things, and like you said, in every interaction, he's having to think out
everything that happens. Everything, every word that was said, he plays in his mind to figure out how he can best make sure that his identities are safe.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy. It really is. I mean, just like you're talking to all these different people who have all these different motives with you and are pulling you in that direction, but you can't tell one person about the other, and two of them are married together.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another fucking crazy part of this.
Yeah, that was a wild. That blew my mind.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. Straight in your head when you're talking to someone. It reminds me of the Rose and the Rook, or the Rook and the Rose, whichever one I read, where I only read 2 of the 3 books because it got so confusing by the end.
Oh, the Mask of Mirrors or whatever.
Yeah. Where the personas they had to put on for all the people they were interacting with, and the things they had to remember, I was like, this is even too confusing to me as a reader.
Yeah.
How could they do this like in real life? But this made sense. Like, it was so well done and believable.
Yep.
Yeah. James Islington did a really good job of making it so that you knew who the different groups were. Like, there's many different players within each group, but you knew who was in each group.
Who was
and
what,
know which ones kind of overlapped.
Yeah, and you knew the stance that each group had and the affiliation that Vis had with each group and why he's affiliated with each group.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
That's by far the thing that stood out the most this time in my read through, was just those facts. It blew my mind this time, because the first time I read it, I was like, this is, I was understanding it, but I was like, cool, it's cool. This time I got like deeper with it, and I was like, holy shit, dude, there's a lot going on in this book. Like, there's a lot politically going on in this book.
Yeah, for sure.
It was just so much.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot, and that's why
complex, And like I said, my whole thought, even especially in the reread, was like the whole pyramid scheme of it all. And what I took from it was that will is like your energy. And
Yeah.
so instead of being able to punch
Totally, it
normal,
is. Yeah.
you're going to punch half as, and the Octavi or whatever have like
Yep.
circles under their eyes from giving it up. And this is like a rare breed and someone who has never like
Yeah, is not willing to cede will.
will.
He won't give
Yeah.
anybody it because of his
Yeah.
heritage, right?
And it was just really fascinating, and like to look back on him touching the table and it didn't
Yeah.
work on him, and because he had never seeded, so it's like if you don't seed, like what could they really hold against
Yeah.
you? What could they threaten you
Yeah,
with?
I like that
Right.
you said it was like you saw it as energy because I see it as like life force, right?
Yeah,
Same
like
thing. It's like
your
you're giving
will.
away half of your essence, to
Yeah.
the next step up. So you're weak and you're tired, but you also still can use the will that you have, which is greater than the people below you.
Right,
Yes.
right. And you even see this exaggerated with the sappers at
Yes.
the beginning
Yeah,
in
Yeah.
prison.
when he
where-
touches the sapper and it like doesn't work on him, right?
Because
Yeah,
he's never gone
and-
to the column alumni or whatever that thing was.
Yeah.
The
And
big
then Ulcasor, however you say his
Alkisor,
father's
yep.
Alcestor.
name,
Or
um,
Alcestor, yeah.
said he had like a theory forever that like I wondered if like you didn't see it, if you touched a sapper, like it wouldn't work on you, and like you confirmed it for me. But
Right.
then finding out that his wife had like basically set up the meeting,
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
him injured. There were layers on layers on
Crazy
layers,
layers.
and you're like, who is pulling the strings?
Right.
Who's at the top of the pyramid? Who is
Yeah.
the one?
It's a good
Well,
question.
It was interesting to get near the end of the book, and there's that guy that Viz kind of fights out in the woods who's
Yeah.
like able to move really fast. He's above Reliquia. Like he's even like I thought the whole
Because
time
Viz-
I thought Reliquia was like the top of the Anquist. Turns out this guy's even higher than her, and Viz is like, what the heck? And so it's like,
Because-
who's at the top of the Anquist?
The guy makes a comment about her, and he's like, "Oh, I thought the way she was speaking to him before made it seem like she was chastising him. When no,
Right.
he's now making a comment like, why would you even think I was considering her? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
okay,
And that's
Yeah.
that's the guy he's like, from my understanding, and maybe we should wait to talk about this. Do you think so?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So that guy is like pulling power from the other side of
from Sanctium or
Oh.
either Obitium or Lucium.
Obitium? Yeah,
Yeah,
And-
because we find out that he ran the labyrinth in the dome. He did the same
Yeah.
thing that Viz did.
But he says when Viz first follows Reliquia to this meeting with this guy, the very first time we see him,
yeah. When they're at the
he's
festival,
he says something like, he's like, because she asked him like, can you do this? Like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, no, it's fine.
Oh.
They won't see or they won't notice. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, he's pulling power from somewhere that he shouldn't be, but
Right.
he's still doing it.
And that's the interesting thing. The other powers that they get from running this labyrinth,
Yeah.
it's something different from Will.
It
because
is.
Viz is able to use it, and he's not able to use Will.
Yeah.
Do you ever think of like the parallels between like Fallout and this, where it's like after a cataclysm and they have like this amazing technology that they don't necessarily understand or how it was made
Yeah.
or how it could be, but
Totally.
they're using it?
Yeah. So that's the interesting thing about this book, right? Is it's hard for me to I'm like, do I call it fantasy or do I call it sci-fi? Because obviously, like before the cataclysm,
There's
they
been
had like
technology
crazy
in
technology.
place, yeah. Yeah.
And so whenever I like pictured this book while I was reading it, I didn't necessarily picture it like in a fantasy world.
I would
kind of
say, like,
pictured
my-
it in like a combination.
Yeah, totally. I feel like Will would be fantasy just
Yeah.
because of the way that it's used and shared, and you don't need an outside other than people seeding Will through the statues or whatever to you.
Right.
You know, when Alkisor blows that dude's head off, like that's magic. That's
Right.
plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Straight up. Yeah.
But then the other side of that is, running that thing,
Labyrinth.
like you said. Yeah, the labyrinth. Exactly.
Gauntlet? When he runs the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing was like okay, this is clearly some crazy
It's
technology.
been
Like
in
this
place
isn't.
for
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of years before the cataclysm. It's always been here.
Right.
And
Yeah.
nobody except for maybe a couple people have done it and taken advantage of that said technology.
Well, because then there's
Right.
all the people. I thought this was an assumption. Maybe it's not, that the people who are standing there, they tried to go through and they failed.
No,
Correct.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
that's it.
Yeah.
Yep. Those are
So
all like
like,
the dead, the people that
yeah,
died in it, and they're kept as like little
yeah.
soldiers to
And there's
use
a
for.
lot of them.
There's a
So
lot. Yeah.
with the how minimally it's known, I would assume like this had to have been here forever to have that many like
Yeah.
remnants.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
Still in two different locations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Viz never did anything in the first one, right?
Mm-mm.
Like,
No.
No, he
was
left.
there a gauntlet to run in the first one? So would that be the other one? Like, he went to, like, say, Sanctum, and the other one was Obidium?
No, because he goes to all three by the end of the book. He's in all three places. I
He
don't
runs
know.
the gauntlet in the first one? I thought he just visits.
No, he doesn't run the gauntlet in the first one. He puts on the wrist thing,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
unlocks for him, and then he sees an example of the race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he
race.
doesn't do
And he
it.
gets
He's
out
like,
of
I
there.
don't-
He takes it
He's
off
like, I'm
and
not
gets
ready
out
for
of
this
there.
yet.
So-
Yeah.
He never goes through that gauntlet.
No.
No. But he does. He
So that's
he
what I'm saying.
does.
Would you think that one leads to a different place
Mm.
than the one he went through?
Okay, that's fair.
I don't know if it's a
Obidium,
different place. It
Sanctum,
might
they're
be.
in whatever one they're in now.
No, because he's so I think that one's probably just another door because we see at the end of the book we see him go to all three. There's one where he stays behind and loses his arm,
Yes.
and then there's another one where he wakes up in like a palisade with all of these columns that go down, and there's like a few
Yeah.
people like running at him trying to grab him, and then that scene cuts off, and we see him wake up in the third place with Searer.
Yeah.
And so I think the one with the
It's
Roman
just
columns.
another door at the other
Yeah.
place. It's just another door.
Yeah, I think
They would be so close together.
what's that? Yeah, that is really weird. And I'm wondering, like, obviously the Academy is there to essentially like unknowingly train these kids
Yep.
to like run
To get
this
to
gauntlet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, man, it's like really close. Like it's within like running distance
Yeah.
from the school.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
like you would have think that they would have like moved the academy a little further away. But that's something that I'm really excited to learn more about is like, okay, so even if the Principalis, even if he designed the school to make it so that this is like a training ground for the dome, then like what does he
ending.
get? Yeah, what does he get from people like running the gauntlet? Like what does he gain from that? And I'm really hoping that we get that answer in the second
Yeah.
book because I can't figure it out.
Well,
and I
like,
think I
Carol's alive clearly in the one world. Why is he not alive in, Viz's normal world?
so my guess is that because Viz copied himself 3 times into all the
Yep.
worlds, I would assume that happens every time you run and succeed at the gauntlet.
And he
Searer is alive in Obadium, and he's alive in Obadium, but maybe not in Res, like our world, in the main world.
Mhm.
And so I wonder if he died in Res, and maybe he's alive in Lucium, or maybe he's dead over there. But we know that he's alive in Obadium,
Yeah.
so I kind of wonder if he did actually die in Res. So I don't know. That's my theory. I don't know if that would be true. And that was kind of the hard part about this book is that normally in most fantasy books, I feel like we get enough information to where you can theory craft and you can kind of figure things out like behind the scenes, and figure out what might be in the next book. In this, like we saw a lot of cool stuff and some stuff gets revealed, but I feel like we don't have enough extraneous information to really even make guesses at what any of it means, which is a little frustrating, because then it's like I feel like I have nothing to guess at in between books. And so I'm hoping that the next book gives us enough information to where we can start making educated guesses on
Mm,
what the third book would hold.
yeah.
Because it's supposed to be a trilogy, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I feel like we just talked about the whole book.
Well, I have a question for Sam. Did you read Lycanius? Did you read the Lycanius trilogy, like Shadows of What Was Lost and all
No,
that?
I didn't.
Okay, yeah, that was the trilogy he did before this one. And apparently it's also got some, instead of doing like dimension stuff that this book is doing,
Mhm.
it's doing some like time travel stuff.
Mm.
And so
I
like
think I have it.
when Viz is like writing on his arm at the end there and it like goes to the other copy of
Yeah.
himself.
Yes, the run,
Yeah,
wait.
Yep.
similar stuff is happening in Lycanius, where from the past they'll like write on their arm or do something to send a message to the future. And so I'm interested to read those. I've heard that they are significantly more complicated than what we got in Will of the Many
Wow.
so
Oh,
far. So it's like a little bit daunting, but I want to try them and just see what they're like. But then I was also curious if have you read Ninth House by Lee Bardugo?
good. I read both of them.
Okay, I was wondering if the maneuverings that we get in the academy and like the political, like Gabe was saying, where Viz has like multiple different personalities that he's all trying to keep in order, is that kind of stuff happening in Ninth House?
um, Ninth House is the one where they're at like Yale, right? The Lee
It's like
Bard.
a dark academia.
Yes, yes, yes. So no, mm-mm.
Okay,
No, it's
not
like
similar.
they're at like Yale or something like that, and it's more about like houses, like secret society
Mm.
type things, and there's like a couple different ones. Um, but no, the
Okay.
main character in it, well, the main character in it is someone who should not be there, should not be part of these. So, you know what? Now
There's a
that
little
I'm
bit of.
talking through my thoughts out loud, I can actually see some of the parallels because the protagonist in both of them is someone who, in theory, should not be there. With where they're from, what their life has been, should not be there. And here they are trying to fit themselves into these worlds. Yeah,
Okay.
yes. Yes,
Okay.
I
That
agree, actually.
okay.
I just
That's
think that
a
went through. But and if anyone has not read Ninth House or Hellbent, the follow up, very, very good. And I am dying for the third book. I really
okay.
am.
So one thing I want to shout out for James Islington is I thought he did a really good job with the themes of this book, and he didn't make them feel like super in your face. Like I feel like Will of the Many deals with things like that you have this empire that's going around and taking over these countries, and some would call that like colonization or whatever, and that's kind of like this big political thing nowadays that people talk about. And I feel like it's really easy to put something like that in a book and turn it into like a very in your face preachy thing that's like, it's like, obviously we know this is bad, you don't need to like nail it to the wall. You know what I mean? And so I just really appreciate how he wove in these themes, and he did it very subtly. He did it with it was just well crafted in the way that he did it. And a couple of years ago, or it might have been like a year and a half ago, Gabe and I read a book called The Bladed Faith by David
Yeah,
Dalglish. And I liked that book.
I did
And
too.
I like David a lot. We interviewed him, and he's a really nice guy. But that book was so just pushy in your face with its messaging about like I said, like colonization and like religion and all this stuff. It was very in your face, and it kind of weighed on you by the end of the book, and you're like, okay, I'm tired of being like preached at. And I feel like I feel like this book just did it so well, and it didn't really feel like it was pushing a particular message other than just telling you what happened and letting you kind of make up your mind on who the bad guys are, which I'm sure everybody would come to the same conclusion. And so I just want to say I really appreciated that about Will of the Many.
I thought it was just interesting, like, how briefly they touched on the topic of what I think was really like the overall arching theme of the book is that what happens when you're the conqueror and you have conquered all?
That's a good point too.
Very good point.
What do you do from there? How does the dynamic shift? And they have these three central pyramids: government, military, religion, and now military, who's always been the strongest, the people they relied on most, is now maybe going to be the ones they don't need at all, on the least. And how does that affect these people who are now up here and are essentially going to kind of be down here in the pyramid scheme of things?
Yeah, for real.
Totally.
You're watching people fighting for different reasons, and they're all kind of fighting over this one central character because for whatever reason they all believe that he can save them. And I find it interesting that, like, Alcastor doesn't know who he is, but Relicia, however you say her name, does know who he really is, and the reasons that they want
it's all about power, right? Like they're all
that's
like
it.
It's not about kind of what I was saying at the beginning is it's not really like the magic doesn't really matter. Like they are using the magic in like various ways and stuff, and you can see it used, but it's more of like a power thing. Like military, whoever's at the top of military, even if they weren't really needed anymore, they would probably live an extremely comfortable life regardless.
Totally. Yeah.
But it's about this idea of like I have to be on the top, and that's how this society is ordered, is that people are constantly striving. Even a great example is Belly and Kaladin, and how they were like not dating, but they were kind of like flirting for a while, and he really liked her and he thought that she really liked him, and she found this one opportunity to completely fuck him over and was like, screw everything, screw all of the like good times that I've had with this guy so far. I'm gonna take this and use it to my advantage to send him way to the bottom of the pyramid, and I'm gonna rise up a spot, just to get up one spot. And I'm like, dude, that is what this society is. Like, everybody is looking for a way to just move up that next spot, and they will fuck over the person next to them in order to do that. It's so, like, incredibly toxic and cynical, and oh my god.
It's interesting, like, with the places in the school, you know, 7th to 3rd, the places that they could rise to, where it wasn't anyone could just move up based on merit. Like, no, if you were going to move up, someone else had to move down.
Right.
Which adds that extra layer of, okay, it's not enough for you to just be good enough to move up. You got to prove that they're not good enough that they should move down. And that was really fascinating.
Yeah, there was a quote I had in here somewhere where it's like, you don't you're not gonna, basically what you said, like, you're not gonna move up out of, it's not about who should move up, it's about who can take it, like who can take that spot for their own. You're not gonna get it just by being a responsible student or like a diligent student.
Well,
you have to actively take that spot.
And that's even, you know, when Vis has his first meeting again with oh god, names are tough in this book, with Alkiskor and Lanastia, and they're like, why aren't you in 5? Why aren't you in 5 yet?
This was so crazy.
I love this part.
and he's just like, what are you talking about? Like,
won't let me pass.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're like, that's not why we asked you to do this. Like, you are cunning, you are smart. You know, just be devious. Be a fucking
but they say,
nightmare.
No, this is life. Life is not fair.
Yeah.
It's not, you work hard enough, you get it. No, you may have to work past these problems in real life. So work past it.
And I think that they were at the point where they're like, just do whatever it takes. Like, do
Yeah.
whatever it takes, whether that's,
Yeah.
lying and cheating to do so or actually winning respect to do so. It doesn't matter. You need to get
Right.
there.
You gotta risk your
Right.
life, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
If that's what you're saying it takes. And for me, that was a tough pill to swallow.
That
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
really
You know,
hard
it
part
was
of the
really
book.
hard.
And
Like,
and that was
no.
something that was something that I didn't really understand. I have like a whole list in these notes of things that I didn't quite understand from the book, and one of them was I don't understand how this school system works, because I was surprised when people were like, you've already been there for 2 months, like why are you not in class 4 or 3? And it's like, what, like aren't people going to school for a whole year to like move up to the next class?
Yeah, no,
And
this is different. It's not like
For
that.
the one
but what's
year.
weird is people had been there the previous year. So do people just come back year after year until they get to the top? Is that how this works?
Yeah,
Or
I don't
is there
know
like
about
a yearly schedule?
yeah.
Because
Who
I
had
feel like
been
it didn't
there, like,
explain that.
multiple
No,
years?
it didn't. It didn't explain
Who
that.
had been
And
there multiple years?
What's that?
Who had been there for multiple years?
Equa, like when she remember at the beginning when I think he was talking to Viridius or whoever her dad is, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna give you my daughter to like tutor you or whatever." Like she's been at the academy, she like knows about it,
No,
and she can tell you
this
about
went
it.
late. This started 2 months behind everyone else.
Oh,
Yeah,
And
we
it
did.
went for multiple years.
Yep.
This started, say, like a school had like 3 trimesters. He started in trimester 2.
Yeah,
Oh, see, I
So
didn't
they were
realize
only
that.
there 1 year.
yeah.
Okay, so
But-
everybody who goes to the academy is there for 1 year.
1 year.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also agree that, though, I mean, both are true, because there's, when he fights or duels that guy for position 4, I think, that there's another thing. They said, we're gonna fight. I'm gonna get your spot, and that was okay. That's how it worked. Now he's
Well,
in
it's
position
just like
4.
with the chess. He said, "All right, if you lose, like I'm going to take your place
Yeah.
3."
And so I
you're
feel
gonna
like maybe there's like an overarching schedule, like if you do this and this, you're there. But there's also like ways you could easily just skate
Yeah,
your ass up to
manipulate it.
Yeah.
3 or 4.
But I
Yeah,
think
like there's different like bargains they make, like
Yeah.
with
I
the
think we'll look at it
preceptors
as
or whatever
more
the
The
teachers
prey
were called.
captors, yeah.
Prey captors.
of the overarching theme of like you can get as far as you are willing to manipulate.
That's right. That's it.
and
Yeah.
That's it.
make
You can get as
moves.
far as you're willing to snake your way up. If you can't
If
go any
you can
further,
get
it's
a
because
number
you
3,
can't go any further.
Yeah, if you can get a number 3 to make a bet with you, where
Yep.
if they lose, you take their spot,
And it's
then
honored.
that's it.
Yeah.
Because in real life, that's how it would work
Yeah.
then, and that's how I looked
Right.
at it. And then I was kind of like, okay, so if you're smart enough,
That's right. If you're cunning,
Mhm.
cunning is it. Cunning's the secret. If you're cunning
Yeah.
enough to make these
Yeah.
people fall for your shit and or beat them at their own game, you'll move to the top.
with the triple apology in the
Yes.
beginning.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I was just like, wow, I would have failed.
Yeah, the old
you-
trifold apology. I love that.
Yeah.
I love books where like I'm like, how are they going to get out of
Yeah.
this? Like die, and then they do.
Yep.
It's I love when
Yep.
an author can
Happens
do
a
that.
lot in this book, that's for sure.
lot.
Yeah.
It's basically the whole book.
Yeah.
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 Another thing I didn't quite understand, maybe we can just kind of go through
Yeah.
these, is so why did Esteban kill himself? Like when he was creating the storm in the middle of that festival that Viz and Equa were at, and Viz runs up to him with the needle and he's like threatening him, and then Esteban like takes the needle and just like shoves it into his own throat. I'm like,
Alicia
why?
says why.
Oh, does she?
She says when Viz sees her at like the tombs, I think, and they go to talk, she says to him like, well, you're the Nomakia or whatever you say
Yeah,
guy.
that's it.
And he says Esteban's the one who really did it. He pushed the needle in his neck at the last second, and she says only a real man is not afraid of death. Something along those lines.
Weird.
I'm paraphrasing, but
Yep.
Viz tells her, and she says no, like only cowards are afraid of their own death. Like no man is willing to do anything.
I'm
Be willing
kind
to
of-
do anything, but not
from-
willing to risk something along
Yeah.
those lines.
From
I'm
my
kind of wondering. Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you got it.
I'm kind of wondering if when people die, they go to like
The other
Obedium or they
world.
go to
Yeah.
Lucia or whatever, um, because we see Viz's dad at the end, and a lot of people have speculated that that wasn't just some like dream
Yeah.
sequence because his dad actively knew about things that were
Really?
happening in
Yeah.
present day. And so people are saying, like, what if a part of his dad is in Obedium or whatever and was
Yep.
able to cross over for a second to talk to Viz? And so
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if there's something significant about what Esteban was doing where he's trying to get to that, because the Anquist seem to know about it. Like that one guy that we talked about earlier has run the gauntlet or something to get those powers, so they must know about it. And so I wonder if Esteban had already copied himself and he was trying to do something. I don't know. I have no
That's
idea.
see,
Well,
that's
I have so many
interesting. I
questions.
like that. I do have a theory on why that all that happened though, and it's probably along the lines of what you guys think. But obviously that was an Anquist terrorist attack, right? That was them saying, "Listen, we're way more fucking powerful than you guys think we are. Here it
Yeah.
is, killing thousands and thousands of people." But I also feel like the reason why Esteban, died and made it look like Viz was the one that killed him is because if you go back to the school and you listen, like he is the champion of Nalmakia. He is
Ooh.
the guy that killed Esteban, planned out. You know what I'm saying? That's the way that I thought
That's a
about it.
good point.
No,
Yeah,
I thought
Because they
that's
they
want him in
how
like a
they
high
it
want
was.
him in the
position.
high position. Exactly.
No,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that's how we were supposed to interpret it.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
Luis set it up
Yep.
through
But
very
I can
weird
see
means,
why.
and she didn't know he would do it. She was hoping he would do it because she had a bunch of lines out, to
Yeah.
like set
Right.
things up. But no, that was intentional.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
And
See,
I can
that's
see.
that's what I was wondering about
Yeah.
because
yeah,
I didn't even put those two
Yep,
together.
and I can see why you wouldn't, because I don't think the first time I did. I think it was this read through
Right.
where it was like, okay, they had this station that they needed Viz to be at, and then for him to do this, he became this famous champion of Nalmakia because he killed Esteban, even though he
Right.
really, didn't.
I thought it was all set up because Rulicia was the one who said he had to be there, and then she was the one who like brought him
Yep,
to him, and they talked and they remembered each other and all of that. And
Right.
so I
yep,
thought that was like the whole point
yeah,
was that to give him a leg up once he went to the
yeah.
academy of like,
And I would agree with you. The
Okay.
only hard part about that to believe is why would Esteban kill himself? Like, why would he throw his life away for this, right?
well, if
Right.
you or was it Spencer that said he's really in one of the other realms and that's how he had
That's
the
could be
powers,
true.
then
Could be
that's what
true.
he wouldn't care.
That's a good point.
Right.
I didn't think that far, but you could be totally right.
Hmm.
Um.
You guys really make me think.
Good.
Just like my white moth theory, which, by the way, I've seen on Reddit lately.
Oh,
Somebody
really?
I have
was
also
like,
seen
if you
that
are a few weeks late, like I already fucking said that.
Yep.
That's great.
I don't guess many things often, so when I do, I am just very proud of them.
Yep.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. You got to own that stuff.
I'm gonna own it.
Yep.
Um. My other question is, why did Viz have to go to run the gauntlet during the Eutychium? And I'm like, even
Because it
if
was
the
his only chance that he was going to be nearby or have a reason to be nearby enough to physically get there.
Oh, really? Is it?
What
Because I thought
time?
it was really close to the academy.
Which
Well,
one was
it's
this?
no,
Was this the first time he went?
No, it's like the
oh
last
yeah,
one when
he
he's
ran it, the
Okay, yeah.
final
during the
See,
time.
Eutychium
I
at
didn't
the
get to
end.
get that far on this
Because
read-through.
where the event was close enough for him to be able to like run and go do it. And after this, like if he didn't finish and do it, Okasaur was going to kill him.
Right.
So he had to get it done, and this was the one opportunity where he was close enough and would be able to like sneak away and do it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because they said that they have like all the islands locked down. That's why Okasaur was looking into it. They thought it was weird that when
When
what's
this
his name took over, that they locked everything down and that they were hiding the ruins. And so I felt Okasaur thought it was like the only chance he would have for Viz to really be able to get in.
Okay. Okay. I just didn't quite understand why he didn't do it before, like in the weeks leading up to the Eutychium Like, could he
So
not just run out there at night and do it?
no, so when Viz is going to the academy for the first ever time, and him and Ulcasor are on the Transvact, he talks about as they go by, like, this is the first one, it's closer. Here's the other one, it's on the far side of the island.
Oh.
And remember how long it took him to get to the close one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to get to the other one, the only time that he was ever going to be on the island
he's already
legitimately
close by.
close to it was then.
Oh,
Makes sense.
okay.
Because the first one did still take him hours and hours and hours.
Hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and that was the close one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To
that's
where
true.
they normally stay at the
So
academy.
if he was to protect his identity no matter what, he had to be close enough to do it without there ever being a chance of somebody noticing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very like
Very opportunistic. Yeah.
you know, and so that's why Elksor was like, the last time he saw him, where he's like, no, like, I basically hired you to figure out what happened to my brother. You haven't figured it out yet, so you need to go do this now. This is your only chance.
Wow.
Right. Okay. Okay, that makes way more sense. The last one that I didn't quite understand is at the beginning of the book, Viz says that he wants to go to be the ambassador in Yatir, because he won't have to use any will there. He won't have to seed any will. He won't have to take any will. And then at the end, he decides to go to the censor's office.
Yeah.
Out of,
Get
like,
this.
I guess a respect for Calidus, but I'm like,
I would say respect for Calidus, but also like, I guess my thought would be like, you know, at the censor's office, you know, you have the ability to change notes,
well,
right?
Theodore's dad was like the main censor, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he was
he's
like
there.
number one.
But from what I understand, the censor is like it's the word of God. It's anybody that's been born ever is within this censor sheet, right?
Is that part of government?
No, I think
What's
it's
that?
religion, right? Is it?
oh, I don't know.
No, it's
I don't
probably
know what
it's
branch
probably
it's a part
government.
of.
It's probably
Military,
government.
because Ulcasor's dad is in part of that, which doesn't Viz say like, oh well, Ulcasor's dad, he's respectable, he was a censor.
Oh,
wouldn't
weird.
that be
I didn't catch
military then?
that.
Because Ulcasor's military.
Yeah, I guess military. Yeah. That's we don't know that. Yes, I guess I don't think that's ever said, but
Well, you know
my
when
thought
they
is like,
discuss and they say like, oh, why aren't all of like the threes going? And they're like, only the military families are going.
Yeah.
So like that's why you're invited. So Ulcasor is clearly military. Is his
Right.
father not military?
I would think so. I mean, that would make
You would
sense.
think, but I'm almost like, was there a moment where he said like it was weird that he deviated from like their family's normal plan? I can't remember.
Mm.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I just thought it was interesting because he had such a perfect opportunity to be like, I want to be the ambassador in Yatir,
Yeah.
and then he's like, I'm gonna go to the It's like,
Well,
I'm sure there's some reason.
Yeah, and I think it's because he's like finally realized like maybe I want more of this. Maybe I don't just want to go live a quiet life. And
yeah, maybe I
forget
have to
everything.
play the game a bit.
But
Yeah, because I'm like, if he's at the censor's office, like he has the ability to, let's say there's a new player, and he can erase them from the map. Nobody
Right.
knows who they are, and he could do that. Not saying
Sure.
that's what happens, but I don't know.
well,
Sure.
he saw what Calidus's dad had in like access to information wise,
Yeah.
you know. It's like, oh wow, this like really changes your perspective because this is what we wanted to talk about in the spoiler free that I was like, I want to bring up later. Where when they do the math on the pyramids, it's not like a normal pyramid. It would actually be like
Yeah,
very thick at
like
the
a
top
very
and
Yeah.
huge at the base.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting, and that information came from the censor's office, and so I didn't know if it was kind of like the neutral of the three pyramids, the middleman, and so he was like, maybe I could take a break while I'm here and really figure things out. But I was really confused by that, only because Viridius comes in and starts spilling all of this stuff to him, and is like, you say you want to do this, and you're going to follow this guy, and then the book ends, and I'm like, what does this mean? What does Viridius know? Has he always known Kara is alive, and that's why he's always been so about Urkasor? Like, dude, relax. Like, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. It's not that big deal.
Right.
I mean, I get it from the author's standpoint. He's leaving us hanging. We have a lot of questions,
Sure.
but I feel like I have a lot. I have a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I
My
mean, do you have any theories on what that was at the end? Like, why he said he wanted to go that route?
I have no idea. I didn't understand it hardly at all because I thought the whole goal this entire time was to get to Yatir, and then he just like changes his mind at the last minute. So
Okay,
I'm
do
I'm
you
not really
know
sure.
in Fallout, not a spoiler in any way, where in the beginning, what's the main girl's name? Um,
Lucy?
Lucy says like whatever she wants, and they're like, "Yeah, I can give you what you want, but by the time you get it, you might be a different person." Like, and
Yeah.
that's how I feel about this with Viz. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I can get you to the point where you will be able to have what you're saying you want right now, but by the time you get there,
You're
you're
not
not going to
gonna.
want it anymore. You're going to be a different person.
Right. Yeah, that's true, and that's I had heard a couple.
Interesting.
I've watched a couple podcasts recently where they were talking about this book, and they were saying how much Viz kind of changed by the end, and they're wondering if in the next book he's actually going to pick up some will, um, to be able to play the next stage of the game a little
But to
bit
pick up
better.
Will, do you have to seed?
I think you would, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. I would probably challenge that
yeah,
and say
I
that,
think he's truly like that's his one thing. He is
yeah,
unwilling
that's
to
the
seed.
hard line. That's the no, I will not do that no matter what, cuz we see that this entire book. He gets
When
offers and offers
Otisor
and
first
questions and he's like, "Nope, I'm not doing that at all,
when
yeah,
ever."
Otisor first visits him, he offers him all of this shit,
Crazy money and crazy
and he
power.
says no, and he's like, "Oh, I realized like he wanted me to say no. He wanted to know I was
Yeah.
motivated enough,
Yeah.
but like he will not cede.
yeah. It's a
It'd be
good
quite the
point.
surprise if he does though. So, no matter
Yeah,
what, if he does or doesn't, I'm ready to figure it out.
yeah.
He wants to be head of a pyramid."
Yeah, he wants to be head of military.
I don't know, man. I mean, military seems like it's the last place you want to be with
Oh,
everything.
totally. No. The only reason why he'd ever get there is to destroy it.
I think you'd really want to be like, I feel like government would always be in place. Religion can come and go, military can come and go, but religion would be the cornerstone. So if
Right,
censure was part of government, I could almost see why he picked it.
Yeah.
right. That's interesting. Let's let's jump down our notes a little bit here. I want to talk about is it Idon or Idom? Can you I
Iden.
couldn't hear.
Oh,
Iden.
Iden. That's how
Yeah,
I say it.
Iden.
We had
Yeah,
Iden.
that's it. It's Iden.
So yeah, what did we think of Iden and like Kalados, like these people that become his friends over the
Yeah.
course of the book, especially the hot intro with Iden, like the
Yeah.
yeah. What did we think of these guys
Yeah,
and
I
their
really
character
liked
arcs?
I really liked Iden a lot, and I think that it was cool
Mhm.
because we find out that he came from a really really troubled, really messed up past. We find out later that he killed some prey captors or something of the sort, right? He was stuck
Yeah.
on a zapper for a while, but the first time that they're running the gauntlet, because Iden's this big tough guy, like, don't fuck with me, stay away from me, like, I don't want anything to do with you. And Vis is like, all right, well, I'm running the gauntlet, or he's running it, I'm controlling it, and he finally hollers something in Chimeran,
Yeah,
Mhm.
and you could just see, his face is like, what the heck, and then
yeah,
they just bond after that, like, completely. And I was like,
yeah,
this guy is freaking awesome. I love his
What
character.
about being in a culture where everyone is speaking a language that you barely
Yeah,
understand?
or the
yeah,
language of people that
Comes in
came
your
and conquered
life?
you, right? Like they destroyed
Yeah.
your family and you
It was
hate
the
it.
same with Calidus, where he, he was so surprised at being treated like a human that he suddenly was like, "Oh, I can like snap out of this,
Yeah.
yeah,
state and like be a normal person again." There are good people out there, and I feel like he did that with both of them.
yeah.
People that are overlooked.
Right. Yeah, I loved his like friendship with Iden and how it kind of grew over the book because it took a while to get there, but I love how they became friends even to the point where at the end in the Eutychium, where the Principalis was offering deals to all of the the class
Partners, yeah.
four, um, and Iden pulls him aside. He's like, we're friends and like I trust you and you trust me, but if I go with you to the Eutychium, you won't be able to trust me. And
Yeah.
you need to know that.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, all right. And we find out more about like his like home life where, you know, his land was taken over and his dad was forced into a position of, you know, a position within the hierarchy.
Like
And
Farik or whatever the butler's name
yeah,
was. Let's
right.
discuss.
And he told Aiden like if you don't become Domitor, then wasn't he gonna kill him or something, or like he's gonna make him a sapper. He was gonna give him over to the sappers.
Yes.
Well, but he's already been at the Sappers. He's already
For a
been
year,
sapped.
he's been.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there for a while, but his dad was gonna send him back if he didn't become
Oh,
Domitor
okay.
of the school.
Well, and they were going to send his whole family.
Oh,
if
they
he
send his
did-
whole family. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if he
yeah.
didn't like conform and go to the school and like.
Right.
So his dad like made a deal when they were being invaded, and he didn't know about it, and he was put in the sapper for a year, and then he came out, and they were like, yeah, his dad was like, yeah, I made a deal, like, and if you
Right.
don't go to the academy, they're going to kill us all or
Right.
put us all in the sappers, which is heavy.
Right. Yeah. So now it's like I wonder what happens to him now, but yeah, pretty interesting. And speaking of the scene with the labyrinth, first of all, I love that scene where he shouts out in Chimeran
Yes.
and they kind of have this moment. It was so great.
Yeah.
And then right after that, Viz is talking to Viridius, and he was like talking about the other guys that are running the labyrinth, and he keeps telling him like they're terrible, like they suck at this. And Viridius is like, no, they're average. Just because you are good at something does not make others bad at it. And I had to like chew on that for a minute and think about it. I'm like, man, I wonder if there's ever been times where I've been like, this person is like so bad at this. Like, how can they be like this bad at it? And it's like, no, maybe it's just that with whatever particular thing, I'm just good enough at it to where I'm looking at others as like, oh, they suck or whatever. It's like, no, they're just normal.
Yeah, they're normal.
That's like our everyday.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like, you know, like when if you like start something, right, and you've been doing it for a while and you're good at it, like if people are not going to be as good as you. That's just how it works. Like,
right. Yeah, I liked that whole interaction, and then oh, Doltardus, he's the one that was like, you guys like that round didn't count because you spoke in another language or whatever.
yeah.
And this prey captor, I hated
Yep.
him so much. Like the book did such a good job to the point where he's like not letting Viz advance, and it takes another teacher to come over
And say,
be like, he needs to advance. Like,
well,
let
that
him
was
go.
only because Rulicia had someone in the group above him killed.
Right.
There was a reason for him to move up.
Right.
Which he did not like.
Yeah, he did not like that. He even said, if you kill anybody else on my account, we are done. I will destroy you.
And she was like, maybe.
Yeah.
Fuck. Like, I'll only promise that if there's other options, but if not, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the freaking dude, they are, the more you think about it, they're terrorists. Mind you, maybe for the greater good, but they are absolute terrorists on society. They're not afraid to kill, murder, destroy anything or anybody. It doesn't matter.
Whoever gets them to their end goal.
Yeah.
Whatever. Period.
Which in and of itself makes them bad, you know? Makes them terrible people.
Well, maybe now's a good time to talk about, because Reliquia's whole thing is like, it's the silence of the many that is like killed your family, and like they're all part of the problem. And it really, like, I thought about this a lot more on the second read through, because it's like, do you blame like the lower part of the pyramid, like the country as a whole, just like the normal people?
You can't.
Do you blame them for giving in to like this structure? Or do you look at it like, if all of the people at the bottom of the pyramid, if they refused to send their will up, then the people up above would be fucked.
Of course, that's how.
Yeah.
Of course, that would happen. That makes
so it's
perfect
like,
sense. But the problem is that the people at the bottom have been trained and groomed into
Right.
their living, right? They don't know anything else. This is how they live. And so
Right.
it's the people on the top that have thoroughly fucked everybody. Thoroughly
Yeah.
fucked everybody.
Right. So I think Reliquia is coming at the problem like, if we destroy the bottom of the pyramid, everything else falls.
No.
And Viz
There's
is like,
something
I need to
bottom
I need to start at the top of the pyramid and
Yeah,
like work my way down. And it's just such interesting like competing ideologies.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Completing ideology. Yeah. Because like me personally, I'm like Reliquia's. They're crazy to think this, but at the same time, I'm also like
they're definitely the bad guys.
Yeah,
How
but
different
still,
is she
if
from
they got
Viz?
their way, it would work.
Right.
You know?
But how different is she from Viz and willing to put aside certain morals to get to a certain end goal?
Yeah, I
Right.
mean,
How different?
I'm not gonna say that because they've all been hurt and they've all been wronged and they've all have their own ideas. I'm not gonna say that it's awful. I just think killing innocents is probably where I would cut the line. I wouldn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting with like Viz accusing Rulicia of like the things she's done and like judging her.
Yeah.
When it's like, you're doing minute versions that if you continue at the like rate that you are right now, you'll be her.
Yeah.
Right.
So are you just looking in a mirror and you're hating what you see? Pot meet kettle?
Right. Right. Let's talk about Amisa. Is it Anissa or Amisa? You
I've
saw
always,
the text.
Yeah, you saw the text. I always thought it was Anissa, but
do you remember how it's spelled?
I thought it was Emmisa.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that could be
way off.
Amisa. So then it is an M.
Wait, did you guys only listen?
Yeah, we only listen.
It's E. It's E. It's spelled with an E.
Amisa.
But is it an N or an M?
No,
An
it's EMMISA.
Amisa.
Amisa. Okay, cool. So yeah, what did we think about her? You wanted to chat about her.
Because I was so confused by the end. I did not understand the final scene where she stabs him and he falls, but then he pulls the heart to him.
Yeah, that's another thing I would probably like clarification on if you remember what happened, Spencer.
Yeah, so Viz when he ran the labyrinth, at the moment that he got lifted up into the sky, and like his breath was getting taken from him and all that stuff, that was the point where 3 of him were
born
splintered
or like
off.
Yeah.
So the one of him that stayed behind in Res, like the main world, he ran out the entryway and those zombie things were like following him, and the dog showed up and they were like fighting them together, and Viz got bit on his arm or like scratched or something, and so he had like this zombie arm that was like spreading, and we don't know anything about it, but apparently Amisa does. And when she sees his arm, she's like, oh god, there's no saving him, he's about to turn into one of those things. My question is, how does she know about those things? Like, she has to know about the labyrinth then.
How did she have will? She had will.
That's another thing. It's like, how is she using will? And he even asked her, and she's like, we'll talk about it later. So we don't know. But
stabs him, he falls off, but he pulls the heart. He somehow pulls the heart, which I also didn't understand.
That's one of his powers.
That's power from the other realms, right?
Yeah.
That's like a power from a different reality.
When he
separate
splintered off, he got a couple superpowers.
Yeah.
One of them is like his Spidey sense thing where he can sense other people around him. And one of them is like this pulling thing that I don't think we fully understand yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sucked because I loved her as a character. I loved the romance in this book. I thought it was so cool. Yeah. And then, Viz gets back to the academy, and Viridius is like, she wasn't doing what you thought. Like, she wasn't trying to take the heart from you. She was like, she saw you turning into this zombie thing and wanted to spare you that.
Yeah,
and so that's why she tried to kill you. Yeah. And so I feel like we still don't have all the answers there, but I feel like my theory, and I don't know if this is like explicitly said anywhere, but I think it's pretty. It's somewhat clear that Amisa and Viridius have some sort of connection and they're working together in some sort of way.
Yeah.
And so what I think happened is that Viridius was like, you're going to get really close to this Viz guy, and you guys are going to become friends, or maybe more, and, you're going to be a tool for me to use him how I want to use him. And I think that at some point she got, like, real feelings for Viz.
It's like Viz
Because
did for her.
Yeah, because right from the beginning, like as soon as Viz gets to the school, she's there.
Yeah.
And Alkiskor is saying from the beginning, he's like, watch out for her. Like something is not right about her. I don't think her motives are in the right place. And at first you're like, why? But then when you think about it, if Viridius told her from the beginning, you're going to get close with this guy, she's the first person there when he wakes up in the hospital room. She goes out to the stables when he's like mucking horse crap. And it's like, why would a third year do this? Or fourth or whatever she was.
Fourth.
Like, why would someone so high up on the thing when the school has a tendency to look down on the lower classes and not associate with them in any way? Why would
she was doing that to like get close to him to get information. That's why she was doing it. 100%.
Yeah, so like I think that was all ruse, but I think somewhere along the way, maybe when they were in the cave together or whatever, after he like saved her.
Oh yeah, with the tide.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if that's the point where she like started.
You know, she's like the Relecia in training, and she caught feelings for someone she was not supposed to.
That's an interesting point. If she was like always an Anquist kind of like plant. You know?
In a place where she had a mission, this is what she was supposed to do.
Yeah, supposed to get close to this boy to either encourage him or to win over him.
Here comes this, and it's supposed to be just like get close to him, see what you can find out about military, Ulkasor, all this stuff, and then she catches feelings.
Right.
Because I do think she likes him.
I do too. I think by the end of the book, she
has real feelings for him.
Yeah, I do too. And I liked that whole relationship. I liked the whole like cave scene. I loved everything after that where they're like dating for a while before the Eutychium. I thought it was written really, really well. And so I hope we see that kind of mended in the next in the next book. I also loved the scene where like she's helping Viz and Idon with the training suits, and they're like it's right before Viz's like fight the next day or whatever, and they're using these big like mechanical suits to fight. And Idon, she's like just a few feet away, and Idon is talking with Viz and Chimeran, and he's like, "Oh my god, she's so hot, right?" And Viz is like, "Yeah, she is, but like I could never do anything. Like she's beautiful and talented and all these things." And like they're like talking about her, but just in this other language. And then she like walks away, and she's like, to us, the reader, it sounds like "have a good day," and then Viz realized that she said it in Chimeran. I'm like, that's so
that was
funny.
Good. That was
I love that. I love that so much.
I loved that. Or when Viz and Idon, or however you say his name, are like shit talking. Whatever it is in front of his
that
face.
Was also super
that
good.
Was so funny. He keeps translating for him. And he's like,
this is like,
Idon,
go ahead.
Idon is saying like something like, "Tell him to suck my big fat cock," or something like that. And Viz is like, he says he's really sorry about yesterday.
It took everything in me to keep a straight face and not start laughing. And I was like, okay, this is what I needed after like the bullshit of like their code or whatever the fuck he disqualified them for.
Yeah. Dude, I feel like there was such great parts of this book where like it's really tense for a long period of time, and then you'll have this release of like humor or brevity or whatever, just like this little
payoff.
Yeah, and it's so worth it every single time. So my favorite part of the book, I think, was the time that they spent in Seuss on their little vacation.
Mhm.
Speaking of like the cave scene and all that stuff,
Mhm.
I loved him returning to his home and seeing how different it is now. Like they changed all of the Seuss like decorations
Mhm.
all over the place, and they made it more. Um, what Katenin, is that the name of the
Yeah,
Katana, yeah.
society?
yeah.
And so he's seeing how like awful all this is, how they just like took over his home that he knows so well, and they're in his house to boot. Like they're in the
I know.
king's like palace, his manor, and it's like it's so sad for a while, but there's so many great moments in here. There's like a moment with Iden where, or not Iden, Idol, what's Indal?
Indal.
Indal, where he finds out that Indal is not going to be going into military after the academy. He's going to be going into, I think, religion.
Religion, I think,
And
yeah.
that's like a big, like, whoa, like, why would he do that kind of
Whose
thing?
dad is, yeah.
Right, because his dad is in military. Um, and like nobody knows that except for Amisa and I think someone else. I forget who the other person is that told Amisa. And then Indal finds out, basically, not, he doesn't find out everything, but he finds out that Viz is from Seuss and is probably part of the nobility, and that he was someone that fled Seuss after the incursion. And so it's like this secret that they both have on each other, and it's like the Spider-Man meme where they're all like pointing at each other like,
Yeah.
you go first, you go first. And so they kind of have something on each other, and that was a really um, an interesting thing to throw into the mix, and I wonder how that's going to be used in the next book, if it will at all.
No,
But
that's interesting because it could be a kind of like slight setup for something where eventually they could maybe be like potential allies, but in
right,
different pyramids, which makes you
yeah,
even stronger. So that's interesting.
right, and even at the end of the Eutychium, he ran up to Indal and he's like, "There's an attack! Get out of here! Like the Anquist are here." And so I think that kind of strengthened.
It didn't take much for him to believe Viz,
Right,
I don't think anyone gets the impression that Viz is maliciously trying to climb the pyramid. You know,
right,
I it's more of like, oh shit, I need to come to terms with like he's better than me. He's
right,
smarter than
right.
me.
Yeah,
Like he's not like a bad person who's just trying to hurt anyone to get ahead.
right, right. Um, but by far my favorite part of the Seuss trip was
Oh
Viz like
yeah.
sneaking around the castle
Yeah,
and
the
running into
secret.
Frederique,
Yeah.
and him being like, "Let me show you something." And he takes him to like this back room where like his mother's bow is there, and like all of these things from his childhood, like toys and stuff. And it was just this great moment where like Viz has been keeping this secret and has been keeping all of these feelings to himself this whole time. He's had nobody to talk about it with. Like literally none of the groups that he's involved with, he's able to talk about this part of his personality. Like when we were
Yep.
talking about him keeping his different personalities like away from certain people, he has no one that he can confide in on this. And so it was nice to give him a moment, even if it was just a quick one, where he was able to talk to Frederique and be like, "This sucks," and just kind of commiserate for a minute. I loved that.
Yeah. I loved where, you read that he's grabbing some of the coins off of one and then he goes back to the restaurant later, where he knows
Yes.
the owner may have kind of been set up to realize who he was, and he gets the food, and when he walks out he puts his coins with his dad's face on it, and
Yeah.
that was one of my favorite parts. But I have a question. Who put the final boat on his bedside table at the end of the book?
That's a good question. So the theories that I've seen floating around is it's either Viridius, and it's
Yeah.
Viridius's way of saying, "I know
I'm
who
on
you
your
are,
side.
but I'm on your side," right? Or the other theory I've heard is that when he sees his dad, because he mentions in this part of the story in the Seuss trip that the boat is missing, and when his dad shows up at the end, whether it's like a dream thing or if it's from Obidium or whatever, where like he's crossing over temporarily to talk to his son, um, people wonder if he had the boat and he like put it there,
Oh.
which I don't know. I don't know enough about
I
how
feel like
all of this works for that to be
initial
real,
scene
but
where he saw the boat, though, he said it was missing. So how would he have moved it from one place to I don't know. I feel like he would have had to see it in the first place to be able to move it.
who? Oh, Viridius?
No, Viz. So when he goes into that room,
Yeah.
he sees the boats he carved for his father, and he says the one that was missing
Yeah.
there was the one with Diago on the bottom, and that's
Right.
the one that's on his side table.
Right.
So if he like was in the different layers on top of each other, the boat would have had to be there in the first place for him to move it.
Or
That's
maybe
what
it got taken away prior to him being in that room.
I thought it was just like I thought maybe it was Viridius trying to leave him a sign as like
I think that's probably the most plausible option of the three. But I heard I can't remember all of the specific parts about it, but I heard a pretty good theory about the dad, the king, being the one to take it. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was Viridius. I think that's probably the more plausible of the options. The hard part about the Viridius theory is that he would have had to have known that that room was there. He would have had to have known about the boat. He would have had to have gone and gotten it somehow. Unless he knew all those things but had a Misa go and get it on the Seuss trip and bring it to him. Because if him and Amisa are working together, maybe he had her go find the room. Because if Viridius already knows that Viz is Diago, is this prince, maybe he's like, find something in the house that it relates
only
to his
he would
childhood.
recognize
Right.
and know.
Yeah, so that could be possible.
I could see that more than like Diago Viz doing it himself, just because like he would have had to know it was in that room and he didn't.
I don't think Diago did it himself. I think like his dad, the king, did it from like the other dimension.
It was something his dad had held on to through whatever layer. Okay, I need a second book. We don't get enough.
I know. That's what I was saying at the beginning. Is there's not
hypothesizing.
Yeah, like you can throw theories at the wall, but you don't have any like anything
actual
really
concrete,
tangible to hang on to. And so like I feel like when we do Dresden Files theories, there's enough information from all of the books to be like, I'll take this piece and this piece and this piece and make a theory. But this, I'm just like, I'm guessing, but I don't have any like tangible evidence for any of this stuff.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But I like the whole Seuss thing. I love that part of the book.
That was beautiful. It made me cry when like he brought him in. He was like, "You don't have to worry about me." He was like, "I knew that they were going to destroy all this, so like I wanted to like save what I could," and it was just that was beautiful. And then topping it off with him going to the restaurant scene, it just really was like
he's like, I was showing you off the other day, like I had you there so that they could see your face and know that you're still here.
I knew he would know what I knew upon seeing you, and like I thought that was beautiful. That was probably my favorite part of the book when he went to the restaurant. I loved the back room, but the restaurant part, I don't know what it was. There was something about the symbolism and then putting the coins down with his dad's face at the end that I was like, oh, I love this.
I just loved that whole trip. Was like, it was so good because like the tension was like way lowered. Like, yes, there was obstacles and there was like little things here and there, but it really felt like a vacation. Like it felt like a period of time where we as the reader were able to relax and like enjoy this vacation with Viz and then go back to hell. And so it was kind of this reprieve for a bit, and then like him and Amisa getting together. I loved the cave scene. I thought that was written so well, and they kiss and she's like, finally, like I've been trying for so long.
them to
Yeah.
be endgame, you know? Like
What's that?
I want them to be endgame.
Oh
Like
yeah,
I
for
love the
sure.
cave scene.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. What else do we have here? Oh, we do get a flashback to Viz talking with his father. My note here is a flashback to Viz talking with his father, who basically asks him what makes a good ruler. He goes on to list a ton of perfect qualities, Viz does, and or no, the king does, and then an exasperated Viz says, "No, there's no such thing as a perfect ruler, I
Hmm.
guess." And his father replies that no man has the right to rule, but they've been put in a position to do so and to do their best. He mentions that the hierarchy's rule is far more insidious. There is no government that is immune from corruption, but that is the foundation of the hierarchy. The hierarchy starts with corruption and only gets worse from there.
Yeah.
Uh, and I loved this conversation with this flashback with Viz's dad, because it's like I love his outlook on it, where it's like, well, what does make a good ruler? Like, why are we the ones who are so that are important enough to rule this island? And young Viz, or Diago, is like, because we care about the country and because we're smart and we're this and we're that. And his dad is like, but there's lots of people who are those things. There's lots of people that care about this island. There's lots of people that are smart and intelligent. Why do we get that? And so it kind of came down to this thing where it's like, yeah, nobody really has a right to rule. It just so happens that we're put in this position. We come from this bloodline, and we are doing our very best to be the best rulers that we can be. And it kind of like, I can see the king doing this as a way to humble his young prince son, like just a way to be like, don't take this for granted. Like, we're in a very like privileged position to kind of like be the rulers of this country. I just thought that was a really cool conversation. I really
Yeah,
liked that.
same. It was really interesting.
Another thing I want to talk about is the foundation game with Viz and Belly. Um, this was so interesting. Do you have any thoughts on this, Sam?
I mean, I thought it was really great how like you think like, okay, he's gonna lose this game. Like he's setting her up to get this like big prize, and then he says, "No, I'll give it up. Like I won't take your third spot if you like give my boy Calidus back the papers that you like fucking stole from him."
Yeah.
Um, and then to be like, "No, I'm teaching you a lesson." As
Yeah.
someone
He's like,
who
these are the
like,
consequences of your actions.
yeah, I am. I'm not someone who like fully believes in astrology, right? But I'm an Aquarius, and apparently it is a very big
Gemini.
trait of Aquarius where we are very like righteous in the sense that we believe in like law, and we don't like when people are getting fucked over by the law.
Right.
So this was in general a hard book for me to read because like, yeah, you're saying you have these laws, but really like it's like who can you fuck over to like get
Yeah.
ahead, you know? So when he set her up and got what he wanted and then said, "No, I'm going to teach you a lesson."
Yeah.
You're like,
Oh.
yes.
I
Yes.
have never read anything more gratifying
Yeah.
in my life.
Yep.
Oh,
That's
That's a good way to
so
put
good.
it. Just purely gratification.
Yeah.
Teach her a lesson. You want to do this shit to other people?
Yeah.
How does it feel?
Yeah, how does it feel, bitch?
Yeah. I know
Oh.
he specifically he said something like how does it feel to like have your trust broken, or to like trust
Yeah.
someone and have it broken?
Just
And
fucking
it's like
wrecks her, dude.
that's what happened to Calidus. Like he
Yep.
trusted her and she fucked him over, and she's
Oh,
just
love
like,
it.
oh my god. And then we find her dead in the labyrinth later. She like tried to run the ruins labyrinth and
Yeah, so like,
died
what's
in
her
it.
story? How did he get there and she happened to beat him to it? I wanted to know more about that.
Right? I know. I'm like, I wonder how many people like actually know about the labyrinth, because it seems like a few people do. It seems like Viridius definitely does.
They love to hide stuff in this book, although it seems like it's like a blanket statement. Everyone kind of knows about it.
Right.
Like when, what's her name? What's her name?
Yeah,
Sets
Equa.
this up to try to she thinks he's using will, but he's not, so she sets him up to get jumped, and like stakes are like placed on it. And it seems like they try to say like, here are rules, if you follow them this is how you move up the pyramid, when it's like, no,
Yeah.
it
You have to find ways
problem
around the rules.
everyday life.
Yeah.
You know, like, no, it is not like if you do this you're gonna get to the top. That's what they're telling you. That's not actually what it takes. And it was something I struggled with. Like, don't tell me this is what I have to do to get to the top. And then I do it, and you're like, no. You weren't sneaky or ruthless or cutthroat enough. You
Right.
didn't fuck other people over to get ahead. So no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's like a righteousness thing for me. Like, no.
And that kind of that's what kind of reminded me of Red Rising a lot, because technically
Yes.
it's the same kind of thing where, like, in Red Rising you have these rules and these alliances, but technically, like, if you find loopholes and you find ways around them and you find ways to screw other people over, you will get to the top and you will be given a better position. And so
it's very rules for thee, not for me.
Right.
And that just pisses me off.
Yeah. even the whole thing with what's his name, Diacardus or whatever his Diatardus or whatever his name is, the guy that didn't like Viz, the teacher in like 5 or whatever that didn't like Viz. You know, I forget who he was talking to. It might have been Alkeskor, but he was like, it doesn't matter if he doesn't like you. You have to figure it out. Like, you have to find a way to advance, even if this guy doesn't like you. Yeah.
That was the first hard part for me, where Alkesor had no sympathy for Viz and was like, no, like, and he finds out he was going to be killed.
Yeah, because in the reality, though, he doesn't care about Viz. Viz is a means to an end.
He's just a tool.
He's just a tool
to an end, and everyone is using everyone else to get what they want, and in the end, more people are going to be screwed over than the people that benefit, and that's why pyramids don't work.
Yeah, and the funny part about that is what you just said, like, nobody cares about nobody. Think about that for a second.
No.
Think about that. Like, that is
hard to have real relationships, and
there's no such thing.
There's no one you can
There's
trust.
no such thing. There's nobody. You could never love anybody ever. It's impossible, because both sides aren't in it. You know, you can't trust them fully. It's like, I don't know. I would. Man, I can't.
If everybody's end goal is to get up, then
and to fuck everybody else over, like doesn't matter who I step on, but sure, we have a teen fling or whatever, blah blah blah, but it means nothing. It means nothing.
It's like, why do we have this kind of society? Oh my God.
Yeah, for real.
No, couldn't do it.
You know, and you only get married for political gain. Like, it's all just like, I don't see my wife. You know, I see my wife 1 month out of every 12. Like, I don't give a shit about her.
They got this like forced birth
I just couldn't,
thing going on, where like, if you don't have children, you're penalized.
Yeah, or if you're not married, like, you get penalized, or you get benefits if you are. So it's like, all right, if I get that benefit, I'll marry whoever. Come here, I'll marry you. Come on, let's go.
It makes sense in the pyramid scheme of things, where it's like, we need as many people as we can. We need all those bottom people.
Yeah,
to hold up the top people, and it's like.
And that's probably why they encourage people to, like, get married and have some children, so they can feed our power. You know?
Right.
Yes. And it, in a lot of way, parallels a lot of crap that's going on in like our day-to-day life, and it just makes you think, like, are they really pro-life, or do they just want more freaking people to boss around?
Yep.
And this book puts it in a way that makes you, like, understand it.
Right.
You know? Like, they don't want you to have more kids just, you know, because they want more people in the world. No. They benefit.
Yeah.
Right. There's somebody that benefits.
Yep.
While you have to live a really crap life at, like, 50% battery all the time.
For real.
Right.
Can imagine. I'm already tired enough as it is, dude. Imagine giving 50% of that to somebody. No fucking way.
I'm an exhausted person 24/7. I can sleep 4 hours, I could sleep 12 hours.
Yeah.
I'm gonna feel
and then you're gonna be fucking tired all day. That's exactly how I feel.
Also, I have ADD. I take ADD meds, right? So I'm taking, like,
you at least have the speed.
Stimulants.
I can't do speed no more. I used to do it. I can't do it no more.
That only keeps me, like, here. Okay?
Yeah.
Well,
you just get, like, a little above baseline.
and you are still taking my energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be gone in like 6 years.
Yeah,
I
totally.
would be gone.
Totally.
So we talked about a lot of the ending already, but what did we think about the Eutychium in general and this big twist with like the safety teams being dead and just like the rules of the
Who was
Eutychium?
behind it?
What?
Who was behind it?
The
safety
Inquist.
teams being swapped.
The
It was.
Inquist.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
know if that was just a ploy.
No, yeah, it was the Inquist.
Because think about it, like if like the government or the military or the religion wanted to like cement their place and be like, this is why we need more help, more people, more coverage.
Yeah.
Let's swap out the safety team and make a crisis.
Well, I think that's kind of what was hinted at, is that military is using the Inquist to do some of these things
because they're so worried about losing their power.
Yeah, because the idea was that like, oh, we need to show them that there are still security risks.
Needed.
Yeah, and like we need
so
military
right.
installations everywhere. And
You're so right.
I think it was kind of hinted at that they were working with the Inquist.
You just like made me connect so many different branches and lines in my head of like who or why somebody was doing it, and that makes so much sense because they are losing their power, they see it coming and they're grasping at it.
Right. What did we think of the Red? I thought it reminded me a lot of Red Rising when they do that in the first book, like the war games in the first book. It reminded me of that, and it reminded me a little bit of the Hunger Games, I guess. More so Red Rising. What?
It was really short. It was really quick.
There wasn't a lot there, and I appreciate that because I'm kind of tired of these like young adult simulation war game type things. So I'm glad that
trope.
It served its purpose. It did what it needed to do. It got all our characters to where they needed to be. And of course, Calidus dying, that was so sad. He was like one of my favorite characters.
The way that Vis carries him.
And he carries him all the way back to the school,
as
right?
like, yeah, he goes, I knew I couldn't stop for a break or else I would never start again.
Yeah, right.
And then he brings him and puts him down and then just...
And he
not only that,
he's like, I will burn you.
Yeah, not only that, and that's what I was to say. Like when he makes his way up, like nobody was expecting him to show up.
Right.
You know, they thought it was over, and some of the whoever, and mind you, I wasn't able to reread this part, so forgive me if I'm incorrect with anything. But
sure.
From what I remember, he walks up there, and they're thinking nothing's happening, and then when he shows up with him on his shoulder, everybody's like,
and the heart.
Yeah, and the heart. What? And so he won. He was Demeter, whatever that word is. Domitor, thank you. Yeah. And it just shook everybody.
The announcement is like, this was a failed year, so that's why everyone freaked out because like they were literally being given an announcement like, no, nobody's getting the heart, nobody's gonna put it in, or just gonna like,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a heartbreaking scene. That really was.
Yeah. And then him like whispering to the Prince of Palace, like, I will burn this to the ground.
Yeah.
Like,
was awesome.
Oh, so
it was
good.
very close.
Yeah,
it was very close.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, totally.
100%.
Totally.
Yeah. What did we think of the dog? The
Alape or whatever.
Alape, Alape.
It was I can't say this. It reminded me of the Farseer trilogy, and that's all I'm going to say.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
No, I like the dog. I think that's like right where I stopped or wasn't able to read further because I remember Vis goes up to this dog and it bites him really quick, and he's like, "Well, duh, it's a scared dog. Of course, it's gonna bite him."
And
then he helps it. Yeah.
When he first goes to the first ruins and he's on his way back trying to catch the transvac before it goes by.
That's where I stopped. Yeah. Yep.
I have a question about the transfect. So I feel like one of my complaints about this book is that I felt like I had a very difficult time picturing things, like specifically a lot of the tech. Not so much like the lands or like the characters or whatever, but like a lot of the tech. I went over when we first see the Transfect. I went over that section like literally like 3 or 4 times.
You messaged me about
Yeah,
it.
and I'm like, it does not explain what this thing looks like or how. I'm like, is this thing like a monorail in the sky, or is
It's
it
a
like
magnetized monorail. That's how I envisioned
Yeah,
it.
so
okay?
I've
But is
always
it
envisioned
attached to
it.
anything?
No, it's not. From what I
No.
understand, it's not. It's a standalone structure
Okay.
that's driven by will with certain laws
I
imbued
thought it
into
was
it.
like magnets. Like, think of it as
Yeah,
like
yeah.
magnets,
I just mean it's not
Okay.
connected to like
and it
any like
floats above
rail.
it.
Got
Yes.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I thought of it. I
Yeah,
was like, okay,
it's like there's a piece on the bottom and the other piece raises up on, magnets or
yeah,
whatever, and that's what you travel in.
right.
Or I guess the bottom piece raises up above the tree line or
Right.
Yeah, it
whatever.
like floats up. I
Yeah.
thought of it like magnets, and it floats along the rail, and you can like decrease,
Yeah,
increase
the way that I
speed.
pictured it in my head is like imagine like a tank, but it floats above the air. A tank is like
Okay.
tank. I always picture tank tracks, on the bottom,
Okay.
right? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
like a big square or something on the top.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
I just thought of it as like a floating monorail,
Yeah,
and the track
that's pretty much all it
around
is. It's just
it, and
transportation.
it floated above it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just fancy transportation.
Yeah.
So going back to the wolf for a second, did anybody else feel like it was a little cheap there at the end, a little Deus Ex Machina, how the wolf kept coming back to help him every time he got into trouble?
Nope,
That
not at all.
that
Not at
made
fucking
me
all.
that made me roll my eyes a little bit because I was like, okay, like every time we think Viz is about to die, the wolf shows up out of the woods and like saves him. I was like, okay, but I liked the wolf. Like I liked the wolf as like a character,
Oh,
or
so
like
you
an
just
animal
mean like the
companion.
trope? You were like, I don't need more
Yeah.
of this.
Well, it
Yeah,
just felt like a little Deus Ex Machina. Like it just kept like it would disappear and then all of a sudden it would come back
come
when
back
we need
right
it
when
the
you
most
needed
and
it the
like help.
most. Yeah,
And I'm like, it
that's
just feels like a plot convenience. I don't
that's
know.
fair. I guess I could agree with that per se.
Yeah.
I thought
I
it was
did
super
love I
fun for like
loved it though.
buddy.
I loved
Yeah.
every second of it.
I think he's gonna come back.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
it was set up as like a buddy type trope,
Right.
and that the animal will be back again. We will.
I hope
absolutely.
so. The more
Yeah.
animals, the better.
Okay, so Viz, he like falls unconscious and wakes up without an arm. And this is because of the slash or the bite or whatever he got on his arm. But also, in the other realm, when he was going into Lucium, he had to sacrifice something,
Yeah.
and he put his arms on the circles that were in the wall, and he felt a pain in his arm. And so I'm wondering if like that sacrifice that he made was like what happens in Rez when he loses his arm. I wonder if that's a consequence of his sacrifice that he made in the other realm.
Hmm.
And
Are there any other characters that have missing limbs?
yeah, like Lanacia,
She's got
her
missing
eyes.
eyes, and then there's also
Yeah.
a chick with
She
missing
missed
fingers.
her eyes. She sacrificed them when she went there with.
Yeah, because she ran the gauntlet with Searer, and it
No,
like
I know.
it like wiped her memory.
Yeah.
But she
So what if you want to go there initially, they're going to take something from you? Her eyes, his arm.
yeah. Did you say there was another character with missing fingers?
Yeah, missing fingers. It was a girl when he first got to the school. He noticed a girl that had missing fingers.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know if that's
She
anything important, but I do remember that.
Was it Belly? Was Belly the one who was missing fingers?
Yeah.
Oh.
Actually, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Belly. Missing. She's
That's
missing 3 fingers on her
interesting.
right hand or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
What if she had been and she was trying to go back and got caught this one?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Guys.
Yeah. And not only that, but all of the dead people that had like obsidian in them, they all
Yeah.
had like missing body parts.
Yep. Most of them,
But-
well, they all had missing eyes though, for sure, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but
Yeah.
those are all people who I think have lost. What if like you've been there, but every
Oh,
time
you
want
win and you
back,
have to
still have to
sacrifice
complete.
something.
Oh.
Whoa.
Every
Okay.
time- just because you go
Okay.
once, like you can't just go back.
Yeah,
like,
you
have
have to
Right.
give
to
something.
continue.
Yeah.
Oh shit. That's a good point. I didn't think
You
about
have
that.
to give something when you, and
Yeah.
that's why she was missing. You guys.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's
I have
interesting.
to think this over because this has just opened like a world of possibilities of things
Right?
now want to
Yep.
look for in a reread.
Yeah. So let's close out with talking about kind of the final thing that we get to see. You know, we talked about Viz going to the censor's office at the end there, and that was his decision. But then at the end, we see three things. We see Viz in the real world make the decision with the censor's office, and then we get kind of a flashback to the point where the three like converged or went their own ways. And we see Viz waking up in Lyceum with the Roman columns, and there's like a group of people that are running towards him, trying to help him, and it says that he's like bleeding and stuff. But that's like a very quick scene, and then the most that we get is him and Obadiah with Searer, and Searer says, "Let me see, is it in my notes here?" He says, they made a copy of you just like they made a copy of the world before the war. And so I'm like, what does this mean? Is there another copy of Rez, or is Obadiah and Lyceum the copies?
So you know how they say they had like what was it they called before the
Cataclysm?
big disaster, the cataclysm? What if they knew the cataclysm was coming and they were able to copy their world so they could go live free on the world not post cataclysm and let this world be post cataclysm?
Right. Ooh, that'd be interesting. I wonder if that's what
That would make
Lyceum
sense
is.
with what he said. They made a copy of the world.
Yeah, I wonder if they made a copy of the world, and then there was an adverse effect, which is Obadiah, because somebody was going through the Latin phrases like Obadiah and Lucia or whatever that word is, and the Lucia one means light, and so people think that's like the heaven, and Obadiah is Latin for obituary, and so they're thinking like death, so maybe that's like hell.
Is the one they're in purgatory?
And then Rez, the one they're in, might be purgatory, or it's just the real world or whatever. I don't know, but
I knew that you were gonna mean that as purgatory before you even said it, so that like just leads credence to.
So I'm like, man, there's enough there to like get me thinking a little bit, but I just wish I had a little bit more to go on. But even Searer, what
on like Netflix? Do you ever watch the Loki show on?
No,
I've watched some of it. Not.
I've given up on everything Marvel.
And so it's all about like the time.
That pisses me off, Spencer.
And everything like branches off, but that's what it makes me think of. If it's our original timeline and this is their way of branching off because they're like, okay, there's this cataclysm coming,
right?
How can we save us? We're gonna have it happen no matter what, but can we like split ourselves off so like other branches wouldn't?
Right. Well, the thing I think is weird, and that might be what's it actually called? Is it Lyceum? I want to say
it's Lyceum. Oh, well, that's how you typed it anyways. I don't know.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Lyceum. And so that's what I wonder if, because Lyceum, like meaning light, I would assume that it's the better world, but Obitium, thank you. Searer says when they're talking, Viz is like, because it looks like the room with the spikes or whatever, and Searer is like talking to him, and Viz is like,
and Viz is like stuck in a circle, right? Like he's stuck within this like magical circle or something.
Yeah, he was initially, but when he gets out of there.
Oh, okay.
And in Obadiah, they're in that room though, and he says to Searer, "But this looks exactly like the room I just left." And Searer says, "Oh, wait till you get outside. It does not look the same."
Huh.
And so it's like, okay, so this world, it almost had like a negative connotation to it, like when you're not gonna like what you see when you get outside. And so then there's this whole thing where Searer tells him, we need to make sure that your other selves get to safety, and so you need to like, he's like one of your bodies, the body that's in Rez, we need to like tell him to wait, And so that's the last sentence of the book is like, and Viz started like scratching a message into his hand, into his arm, and we know that he writes wait, and then a few minutes later he writes run, and or he gets RU, and he doesn't get the chance to do the last one, but we assume it's run, and so Viz, I I'm just trying to figure out like why they needed him to wait, like what that did, because remembering back to that scene is like Viz in Res, he got out of the circle and like all of those monster guys started like coming towards him, and he started to like run, and then he saw like the wait thing, and I can't remember if he did wait for a second or if he just ran. But I don't know what waiting would do, because Sierra says, I have it in my notes here. He's like, we need you to stay by the gate. We need you to, which is like the big thing with the spikes.
Yeah.
He's like, we need to find a way to get a message to you so that you don't move out of the gate just yet. That's exactly what he says.
Yep.
And so it's like, I don't know exactly what that means, and I wish I wish that epilogue had just been a couple more sentences longer, just to figure out like what he means by that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The ending is such a mix for me, because on one hand it's like incredibly frustrating because there's just not enough information.
Not enough info.
It just doesn't leave you with enough things to chew on.
To feel happy about, the ending of it.
Yeah. But on the other hand, it's like such a crazy twist that comes out of left field, and doing a reread, you see the Obitium and Lucium mentioned early on in the book, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like that's, it was kind of telling us about these things along the way. But then at the end, you're just left with like, just not enough info. And I'm just like, oh my God, I need the second book.
Yep. I need the second
I'm ready.
book. Yeah.
I'm ready now.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of our plot points. Any final thoughts, you guys? Any questions you're most looking forward to being answered in the next book, or any characters you're most looking forward to seeing again?
Yeah, I'm most looking forward to figuring out what's up with Cyril. That's probably what I'm most excited about, is seeing, why he's in the realm that he is, and the story of how he got there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm definitely interested in seeing how all the worlds line up with each other, what the physics is on that.
Yep.
But
I hope we see them.
What we got in the first one with the sappers and the seeding of the will, I'm not going to put too much hope on it.
Yeah.
But I would love to know. But I will definitely read the next one.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see like what Will does, like, because we've seen it used in like combat occasionally.
Yeah,
and,
or
like,
even what the other, like what the magic from the other realm does and is.
Yeah.
And why that
right.
I think the magic from the other realm is what powers like the major weapons.
Yeah.
But they talk about at one point when they say like, oh, during the Naumakia, or however you say it, I lost 400 people and I blacked out,
Yeah.
So like clearly it's some sort of like life system.
It affects will, or affects your something
your
in some
energy.
way. Yeah.
I looked at it as energy, like how much energy you have to just do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I would like to know more.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what's going on with Amisa. I'm fairly certain that she's working with Viridius.
Yeah.
I would be really surprised if she wasn't.
I would agree.
Yeah, and so I'm interested to see what the rest of her story looks like. And then I'm also interested, I think what I'm most curious about is going forward from here. The first book is completely in Viz's perspective from the world of Rez.
Yeah.
And so are we going to get 3 POVs that are him in each dimension, and we're going to follow them?
Like Empire of the Damned, where you get all the different perspectives.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting to see how it plays out and how they explain it.
Yeah. I don't know. I want the next book so bad. Even just this reread, especially. Like the first time I read it, I was like, "Oh, I want to know what happens." But this one is like, I am dying for the next book. And apparently, it's well on his way. I can't remember the specific the specific tweet or whatever, but there's a name for the second book. Let me see if I can look it up.
Oh, I feel like I knew it. I feel
It's
like I looked
something
it up.
of the one. Oh, it's called The Strength of the Few.
Oh, nice.
I knew it was something with the few.
Yeah. And it says it's planned to release in 2024 or 2025.
Nice. So we'll get it in the next year or two, maybe.
Yeah. So hopefully we get it this year, but 2025 would also be I would understand if it was 2025.
Yeah.
But man, I am just looking forward to it so much.
Same.
Also, Sam, since you like this book, you should read the sequel trilogy to Red Rising. I'm just saying. You should do it.
I read the first like 4 books. I need to catch back up.
Yeah, dude, because Lightbringer came out at the end of last year, and it was insane.
I think I have all of the books up to that one. I'm pretty sure I have all of the books up until that one. But it was, I think I got one to Golden Sun, and I was just like, oh my god, I can't do this. It got to space, and I'm not a sci-fi person, like a pure sci-fi. I can't do it.
No, you read the first trilogy, right?
Yeah, I read at least 1 through 3, and
okay.
then I think I started on Golden Sun. I read
Iron
Gold, yeah. And it was just too much, and they were fighting in space a lot, and I cannot picture space fighting. It is just past my comprehension. I am a fantasy girly. I am not sci-fi. I cannot do like a straight sci-fi, and I feel like it took a hard right turn into fully sci-fi.
Okay, yeah, I would say keep going because they don't spend like there's a lot of like new planets that they go to and they spend a lot of time in like cities and on planets and stuff. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I've got a. I just want.
I have them. I definitely have them somewhere behind me.
Yeah.
I just went to James Islington's website, and he's got an update as of 3/24.
Oh, cool.
And it says, a healthy and productive few months of writing to start 2024, I'm happy to say, with the only frustration being that there was just still a lot more to do than I thought after the last update. So while December's estimate turned out to be overly optimistic, I will say that the strength of the few continues to shape up well and is now almost done. As far as the details go, I finished the first initial pass of the final draft, which is sitting at 255,000 words, about 15,000 more than The Will of the Many. I'm currently working my way through a long list of notes on it. Once those tweaks are complete, I'll spend a couple of weeks polishing everything, do a final run-through, and then hand it in to my publishers for edits. At this stage, that all means I anticipate I'll be handing in the manuscript sometime in May. And even if I end up off base again like last update, it's already so close to done now that I genuinely can't imagine a further delay costing me more than a week or two.
Oh, shit!
So in short, thank you for your patience. Things are going well, and the finish line is very much in sight now.
Oh,
yeah.
Dude, we might get it this year then?
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for finding that.
Yeah, totally.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Yep.
All right. Well, I will be eagerly awaiting that sequel.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll have to figure out what we're reading next. What are you reading right now after Greenbone? What are you gonna read, Sam?
I'm honestly very much considering. I was actually thinking when we get off of this video, I'm going to go downstairs and reopen Assassin's Apprentice.
Nice.
Because it brought it back to the forefront of my mind. And I was like, fuck, man, I loved those books. Like, it's been like a year or two.
Doing a reread of your favorite series is the best fucking shit ever.
Yeah,
it's like, so good. I know it's going to, like, punch into my heart and just rip it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like mentally prepared for essentially misery porn in a way.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, like I loved those books, but they fuck you up.
Yeah.
Like, they fuck you up, and
that's great.
I don't know. Spencer really made me think like it might be time to pull them back out.
It might be time. Yeah, I'm gonna be digging into them here soon after I get through. If I can just get through the next Powder Mage book, I'm gonna do Warbreaker, the next Powder Mage book, and then I'm gonna do the next Assassin's book, and then the last Powder Mage book, and then the last Assassin's book.
Nice.
Yeah. I think I need to prepare myself so when you're ready to talk about it,
right.
I am.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. And then we also need to read. Let's do Fourth Wing at the end of May. Yeah,
You guys, let's do this.
yeah.
Because even though I know you're going to hate it, I need you to read it so we
It's gonna
can,
be
like,
fun.
it'll be so much fun.
Yeah,
We're going to do it late at night. We're going to have a couple drinks. We're so
yeah,
I'm already
please be
sold, Sam. You don't need
yeah.
to
Me
explain
too.
any
Me
further.
too.
hilarious because I know you're both just going to fucking rip it to shreds, especially Spencer. And I'm here for it.
Sure.
I'm here for it. I want to do it. Like, did I like the book? Sure. I read those kind of things,
Right.
but I want to read. I want to hear from somebody who's like, "This is garbage," because I know it's garbage. Did I like it? Yes. Is
Yeah.
it garbage? Yes.
Hey.
Both can be true.
Yep.
So
Both
I
can be true. Absolutely.
really love to go over the atrocities of Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's do it the last Saturday in May, the 25th, and we'll do it later at night so that we can get a little goofy and get some drinks in us, and that'll be a ton of fun.
25th. I'll put it on my account now.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging in there for this big discussion. I knew it was going to be a big one because there's so much to talk about with Will of the Many, and it was a ton of fun just to like sit down on this Saturday and hang out and talk about this incredible book. For me, I really feel like it's going to be my number one of the year. Like I don't know unless I rethink it and like Empire of the Damned takes its place, but I really feel like The Will of the Many is so far my number one of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you guys. We are going to wrap it up there, everyone. Also, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter, Discord, and Patreon, all of which are linked in the description. The Patreon, of course, if you back us at the Mistborn tier or above, like Sam is, you can see all of these episodes as we record them live, and then continue to watch them on demand whenever you want, up until, we put it out on YouTube, and that would probably be the premium place to watch it. But Patreon is a great place for that. You can also get these things called Fantasy Files After Dark, which is basically just Gabe and I getting drunk and talking crap for an hour or two and just hanging out and
good fun.
Watching
fun.
like movie trailers and stuff.
Good time.
Yeah. So Patreon is a great way to support us. If you can't support us there, that's totally fine. Subscribing and liking here on YouTube is also an excellent way to help us out. We love it when you guys do that. It helps us with the algorithm, and we love it when you guys leave comments on our videos. I've had some great comments recently, which actually, Gabe, did I tell you that there was this guy that commented the other day that said it was on our Gleanings video for like the Scythe series?
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm a teacher for a homeschool group, and we've been going through Gleanings, and he's like, I've been using your videos for discussion topics with my school group.
No way.
And I'm like, that is like the highest form of like,
we need to get that
praise.
guy on here.
Yeah.
Dude. That's incredible.
I'm like, that's so amazing.
That
He's
is. That's like that, dude. That's
Right?
like ultimate.
Isn't that crazy? It's so
Wow.
cool.
That's
And he was
so
like,
cool, man.
he was like, what other books have you covered on the channel that would be good for the group? And I was like, King Killer and like Red Rising. What else did I tell him?
What's the age group? What did he say?
They're
He just said
teenagers,
homeschool.
like late high school. It's like 16, 17, 18, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I gave him a couple recommendations. I'm like, these would be great for like discussions within the. Oh, Mistborn was the other one. I was like, Mistborn, Red Rising, and King Killer. All of those would be great discussion topics or great books for discussion.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I thought that was super cool.
That's really
I love
cool.
it.
That's really cool.
I love it when you guys comment and just tell me stuff like that. That's fantastic. But thank you guys so much for being a part of this community in that way. Also, like I said at the top of the show, we have a bingo card. There's a video on our channel that you can find. It's one of the last like 5 or 6 videos where I explain the bingo card. But basically, if you get it filled out, you can get a free trilogy of your choosing, like a hardcover trilogy that we will send to you if you get your bingo card filled out from any of our episodes in 2024. So there's a link down below for that. as well. I'll also add the link to the video that explains the whole bingo card thing for you. So, but yeah, like I said, that's going to wrap us up, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We will see you on the next episode of the Fantasy Files podcast. Bye.
Bye.